of WRC of ICI. Today we are starting with the GST Litigation Series. It is a 8-session series, and today we have our renowned faculty SS Gupta sir and Sandeep Sachdeva sir. I also having along with the Yashwant Kasa sir and Chairman of WRC CA Murtuza Kachwala ji. So sir, before proceed for the session and formalities, I request everyone to kindly place your hand on heart for the ICI motto. Mishra ji, please.
अभी क्या टेंशन नहीं है, मेरे को ही बोलने का 2 मिनट पता
सुप्तेषु जागृति कामं 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 कामपुरुषो पुरुषो निर्विमाणः निर्विमाणः तदेव शुक्रं तद्ब्रह्मा तदेवामृतमुच्यते तस्मिन् लोकः शतः सर्वे तदूनात्यति कश्चन एतद्द्वैता
Thank you, Mishra ji. So at WIRC, we are taking multiple initiatives, as you all are aware. We have just launched our sectorial series, which is focusing on 15 different sectors. We have also come up with a recent publication on Maharashtra Amnesty Scheme. We are also coming up with 2 more publications on GST. Maybe that would be released in the next month. With this thing, I quickly move to our chairman for his opening remarks. CA Murtuza Kachwala sir, for your opening address, sir.
Thank you, Gautam. Very warm good evening to all the participants. We have almost 200 registrations for this program, and as I can see, more than 100 are already come inside. They have joined the session. So let me first welcome each and every one of you who have decided to join this litigation series. Let me thank CSS Gupta ji for covering the topic of do's and don'ts to represent before the authority today, the first session. Sir, thank you very much for joining us and deciding to spare your valuable time with the participants, sir. Let me also recognize presence of Sandeep Sachdeva ji and thank him. He is going to cover the second section, legal drafting. So, sir, welcome and thank you for your time, sir. As explained by Gautam, 4 days, 2 sessions, 8 sessions, covering the whole litigation aspect of it. So the idea here at WIRC this year is, when we say lead, we are talking about leap towards excellence, achievement and development. And there are 2 important aspects. There are 5 goals which you decided, but the 2 important goals is, 1, how do we update our members technically so that they add value to the client? And that is where this smaller, each and every smallest and the finest thing is important. And we said, let us go into more details instead of doing a high level, a GST program or something like that. And that is where this litigation series, where we got 8 different topics, where we'll ensure that we go into more detail and cover the finer elements of it from the experts. Similarly, we also want people to become expert in industry, be it real estate, be it hospitality, be it like a tourism industry. So what are the issues, GST issues facing that industry, and how do we add value to the client? So that series we started yesterday. The second important goal which we set out for ourselves at WIRC is to adoption of technology in each and every aspect of our practice and the service, so that we can do the work more efficiently and effectively. And we are also thinking about developing certain tools which will help us in GST filing, reconciliation, etc. And if all goes well, those tools will be provided free of cost to the members. So lot of work happening, especially in the Indirect Tax Committee. And let me thank Chairman of Indirect Tax Committee, Yashwant Kasar, and Vice Chairman of Indirect Tax Committee, Gautam Lat, for all the good work. Congratulations to both of you. Keep up the good work. And I welcome all the participants once again. Happy learning to all of you. And thank you very much. And over to you, Gautam, again. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for sharing your opening remarks today with us. So guys, this litigation series is also from the perspective where Chairman sir has briefed that we would like to, move more chartered accountants and we would like to explore more opportunities in litigation. Then how can chartered accountant be equipped that they can practice more into the litigation area? And today we are starting with an excellent topic, the do's and don'ts to represent before authorities. Many people have approached us to have, such kind of topic. And, we have one of the most renowned faculty on the topic, S.S. Gupta sir. The second topic of today is legal drafting, which is how to do a legal drafting, which is a need of the hour. With this thing, I'm sure you will have a, good learning throughout the series. And I wish you a happy learning. With this, I would like to invite Yashwant Kasar sir for his remarks and introduction of the faculty. Sir.
Yeah, thank you, Gautam. Dear friends, this is today we are starting with the litigation series. And as stated by Chairman sir earlier and Gautam also, that GST committee of WRC is one of the vibrant committee who is organizing various programs on various topics. Yesterday only we started sectoral series, and today we are beginning with this litigation series. We are also publishing various publications for the benefit of members, and one such recently published publication is about Maharashtra taxation scheme, Maharashtra amnesty scheme, and one in pipeline is regarding Schedule 3 of the GST Act. So we request you to keep giving your suggestions regarding the committee activities or any publications that you want us to come up with, so that we can work on that. Regarding this GST litigation series, when we planned this series and we were structuring the topics of this series, the first session we wanted to have of the S.S. Gupta sir, and we are really fortunate that we are beginning with his session for this series. And it's my privilege to introduce before you him, S.S. Gupta sir, and the second faculty also, that Sandeep Sachdeva sir. We are thankful to him also for taking up the topic of legal drafting. Regarding S.S. Gupta sir, all the CA professionals know him. He is a well-known personality when it comes to indirect taxation, a very humble personality, a senior CA who is always ready to help youngsters, very soft-spoken personality. Sir is the author of various books on indirect taxation. He is the author of a book on service tax and how to meet your obligations, which was published by Taxman. Then he is author of book in GST law and practice, author of book of GST, how to meet your obligations. Then he is contributing various articles to various journals. He is a regular speaker at various professional forums, and he has also authored book of GST audit. Apart from that, he is the past president of Bharat Vikas Parishad. Then he is the managing trustee of Sankalpa. He is the treasurer of Mangesh Vishwastha Mandal. He is the chairman of Keshav Shruti, located at Bhayandar, and he is the chairman of Punarva School at Goregaon. So apart from the expertise in indirect taxation, sir is also engaged in various social activities, and he is very helpful in nature when it comes to help youngsters and young professionals and colleagues. So we are really fortunate to have him for this very first session of this litigation series. I'm sure that with his vast experience in indirect taxation area, his insights, his guidance will be helpful for all the participants. I request sir to please cover his practical experiences that he has got for these many years practice, so that our participants will get benefited. So once again, I thank him for agreeing at very first instance for taking up this session. Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Now I request SS Gupta sir to please start with his session. Thank you, sir.
Chairman Sri Murtaj Kachwala, Yashwant Kasar, Vice Chairman, and Gautam Lad, and friends. I'm very delighted that Institute has started this series. In 1994, when service tax started, we were not practicing in indirect taxation. Hardly there was any person who was practicing in indirect tax of excise and custom. But Institute took a lead and started educating the various members in service tax, and that is why you find many have taken initiative in service tax. We are normally recognized as more a compliant person. So what people feel is that we will be filing return, looking at the books of account, auditing and all that. And our trademark is that only, that chartered accountant means he will be complying with the law. But now with the Institute taking initiative on litigation, I am sure more and more chartered accountants will undertake practice for practicing in the litigation. That means representing before the authorities. Let me tell you, representing before authorities is most challenging task. When the service tax, I'll give you slight background, when chartered accountant represents. When we chartered accountants started representing service tax before commissioner and other authorities, we have some of the commissioners who are good friends. He says, earlier those retired superintendent used to come to us and we used to then fire them. This is not correct. What nonsense you are talking. But now when chartered accountant comes to us and we can't raise voice, we listen to them very carefully, because they are also able to give us more knowledge than what we have. Now, this is a change which is made. Generally, litigation is assumed to be the lawyer's area, because they have a right to represent before the High Court and Supreme Court. We do not have an authority to represent before that. But up to tribunal and up to various authorities, I'll cover in my speech in that, we can very well represent. And very often we have seen that with the improper representation, that the demand arises. If we are able to represent properly, you find that authorities do understand. They also understand the law, but very often the facts are not given properly. And that is why the demand starts running into this. And once the authority raises a demand, then it continues for years together till it is set aside. And as we all are aware, litigation in our country takes at least 10 to 12 years for the purpose of decision. This is also a small number, but sometimes it is taking 2 decades, 2.5 decades. Until then, the department goes on raising the demand. And that's why so many litigations are there. You must have seen recently, the government started with the portal, Law Ministry started the portal, asked all the government department to feed in what number of cases they have. And approximately 8 crore cases have been listed in that portal. And still the secretary is finding, you're not listed for full amount. You please list all the cases in the portal. Otherwise, they are threatened that if you are not registering in the portal the cases, we will not approve the fees for that case, which is not registered in this. So the lawyer's fees and all this which the government department will appoint will not be approved by them. So you can imagine the 8 crore cases means you have to go on representing before the authorities. So with this remark, let me start. Now, you have to represent before the authorities for various purposes. This can be during investigation. Before I start, I must tell you, as I was speaking to Sandeep here, nowadays, when the court, you have seen the online courts and all that, High Court, Supreme Court and all, you must have seen many lawyers representing before the even Supreme Court also. Now they are also, when you look at them, you also feel that we can also represent. There's nothing new about these lawyers. We can also represent before High Court and Supreme Court. Not, I mean, that we are not authorized, but at least up to tribunal, we can definitely represent. Now I will come to the that is a litigation. But before the litigation starts, very often one has to see the investigation. Investigation is sometimes based on the complaint received by the party. And nowadays, the department has developed the intelligence, they call it financial intelligence unit, which goes on giving the information to the field formation as to which are the registered person who needs to be investigated. Now, these investigation can be based on the intelligence unit, which is basically that companies are having huge turnover, but they are not paying any amount through the electronic cash ledger. They are all using the credit. Or there's a difference between the 3B and your GSTR1. Now, these are some of the parameters which they have laid out that the taxes, that the investigation starts. The other investigation agency, like we have Director of Investigation in the direct taxes, you have here DGGI. DGGI, which is for GST, and they have offices all over the India. They have offices in Pune, Mumbai, Maharashtra, in so many places they have offices all over India. Now they develop certain intelligence by talking to say various persons, and then they start investigating on that particular thing. Now, for example, recently they have started with educational institutions. You know, all educational institutions are exempt from payment of service tax for the services provided to the students. So you provide education service to students, you provide books to the students, or you provide uniform, and all these things are exempt from payment of tax. What they have taken a view is when the person takes an admission, when applicant takes an admission, and before the college starts, first lecture starts, sometimes he cancels the admission for various reasons. Sometimes his father is transferred, so he has to go to other places, or he gets the admission in different other higher universities, higher institution. Sometimes he he decides that I have to know, I got an admission in UK or USA and other institutions. So he cancels the registration. And only when fees is returned, certain amount is retained by the school or college or the institution. So if he has paid a fees of 1 lakh rupees, the retention may be 2,500 rupees. Now the 2,500 rupees, the department says that you have to pay the GST. The reason is, they say he is not a student till he has attended the first lecture. So he remains an applicant. And that is how the investigation, they have developed some intelligence. Now, what happens during investigation is, see, this is where the things have to start now. First thing will come a letter to come to, letter that you give all this information. Please, first thing, you should give all the information promptly and correctly. Very often we have seen people ignore these letters. Now, some of the, as I said, this GGI has the investigation from offices from various places. Say you, Chennai is there, Calcutta is there, Kanpur is there. So many places they have. Many of the institutions in Bombay or Pune or other places have got letter from Chennai to give this because they have already a jurisdiction. Now we have been, this is where institute can help, Yashwant can help us. We have to represent before the institute department. Sir, you may have the offices all over India, but kindly understand a person visiting from Pune or Mumbai to Chennai to give an information or to give a statement. As against you have office in Mumbai, why don't you ask your same officer to record the statement in Mumbai? We have been trying our best to ask department, look, you have offices all over India, you ask the nearest to your office to record the statement, to collect the document, and then you give a show cause notice, whichever is there. Now come back to the institution. So in this case, what happens when they caught hold of certain institution and started from Chennai. The Chennai, some small institution must have paid the tax. If there is a small, we also, if somebody comes to us and he says that total the GST liability said 2 lakh rupees. We all know that litigation itself will cost 2 lakh rupees. He said, Baba, you just pay and finish up the matter. Don't go into this thing. And that becomes a starting point for them. They'll say, look, that institution has paid. Why you're not paying? It is not necessary. When you are representing before the institution, before the authorities, it is not necessary that X institution has paid it, so you also should not pay. You pay or you don't pay depends upon your analysis of the situation. If after looking at the factual position, you come to a conclusion that tax is payable, you can pay it under 73(4) or 74(5), whatever it is you pay. But if you come to a conclusion, then you should not, then you are not liable to pay, which you have taken a stand. You should not pay this. So the purpose of investigation can vary from depending on the factual situation, what intelligence they have developed. Same way we started pharma companies have started investigation of pharma company from Kanpur. Most of the pharma companies have gone to Kanpur for recording of state. The nature and purpose of investigation, friends, will vary depending on the each cases. First thing we should note, they will invariably say that look, somebody has paid it, so why don't you pay? We should not worry about what others have paid or not paid. You can say, sir, as per my opinion, this is not paid. One thing more we have seen, they will never give in writing anything until a show cause comes. It is all during personal discussion and talk that you can infer what is they are looking for. Otherwise, the manner of information which they ask is, they ask for, huge information. We always say, this is Hanuman ji Ramayana mein उनको संजीवनी बूटी नहीं मिली थी, so he पर्वत को उठा के ले आए. I said they want more information, and we should provide them all the information. Whatever floppy and all this thing, we should provide the information. Then after the investigation, the recording of statement starts. Sometimes the authorities may be willing to discuss with you as to why the tax is payable, why the tax is as per them. Here also they won't give in writing. Now, if you are the client, sometimes says, sir, please accompany me, because they are afraid. Law, sometimes the law may not be known to them, or sometimes they are afraid also. Here you need to be little careful. You can tell the client that, look, I will give you everything in writing to you. You please show before that. And B, if you are accompanying them, you have to be very, very careful. Because sometimes they don't listen to us during investigation, during recording of statement. They will just bombard us and say you are giving wrong information. You are wrongly telling the client that this is not payable, but it is payable. And sometimes we also seen that they write a letter also that your consultant also accompanied you, and therefore he has agreed that you are required to pay. Now, therefore, while you are accompanying the client for investigation, during investigation, you need to be very careful that if you enter into a discussion on law point, they rarely accept that our view, although we can record the same in our statement or by a letter or so. But they sometimes also say, tell the client that your consultant also is agreed with it. That's not the case. So when you are recording a statement, you can be outside and say, we will not be accompanying him, and client can come out and whatever guidance he wants, he can take it. Thereafter, whatever, please ensure that all documents are submitted. Now, this is very important. And nature of transaction is explained. Very often we have seen client gives a half-hearted document and is not able to explain the nature of transaction, particularly in case of export of service. Export of service, you see number of show cause notices come because the department tries to deny that this is not an export of service. And this is the reason is that we are not able to substantiate what is the nature of service. Once you are able to substantiate what is the nature of service, place of supply, and foreign exchange earned, then only you can substantiate the export of the client. Just says a BOPT for export of service. Once the nature of it, now this happens in research and development activities. Research and development activity is one activity where we have seen number of times that client is not able to give the information as to what activity is carried out. And therefore, the department does not get the clear picture whether to treat as export or not. The safe view is to treat it as not export and then say place of supply in Bombay, in India, and taxes paid. When you are explaining, please explain the transaction very, very carefully and give the data supporting that. Just oral explanation of the transaction is not sufficient. I'll tell you one other case which has happened. The company is in a second-hand car dealer. They got the they have got a godown warehouses at various places. When the car comes for selling on a second-hand sale, they store the car and they tell the person that look, till the car is stored, you can store the car here, or you can bring the car as and when I ask you at that point of time. Now there are a large number of rent-a-cab operator who wants to sell their car itself, so they don't want to. They don't have a place to store this. They take they store the car in their warehouse. The company raise the invoice to the warehouse second car company, raise an invoice to the car dealer or the car operator who has kept the car inside for warehousing. Then the car dealer told him, sir, you don't raise the invoice on us. You please raise please raise the invoice on the customer who is going to purchase the car from you finally. So he cancelled the invoices which is raised on the car dealer and took a credit of the taxes which is already paid. This was done within the period, tax period permitted under Section 34. Now, department started investigation. The department was repeatedly asking, all right, you have cancelled, given a credit note, but show us when the car was sold. Ultimately, you have warehoused the car. You have provided the service of storage. So, all right, you are charging the car dealer company, but now car dealer has told you that you recover the tax from the warehousing charges and the tax thereon from the person who's purchased the car. You kindly show us that for each car, what is the when you are sold and how much you recover. And that information was not submitted by the company. Because you see, what happens is all this representation is made by the tax department, and tax department has to finally go to the business person to get this information. The coordination between these two departments itself creates a big problem. And therefore, the information was not submitted, which resulted in ultimate show cause notice of a huge crores of rupees. And now the same information is required. The same information is required to substantiate. I mean, Sandeep will explain you how to reply on this thing. We need to explain the same. And therefore, when you are attending the investigation, kindly understand what is he trying to say and submit the proper information with the law. At least nature of transaction should be clear. We have seen in number of times the nature of transaction itself needs to be extracted from the various documents which the client has submitted, and that results in the improper listing. So during investigation, representation can be made if the officer is willing to listen. Most of the time they are not willing to listen, and we have a major problem is that at that point of time they never tell you what they are looking for. I mean, only during the talk, during the discussion, you can find out what they are trying to aim at, and then nothing comes in writing to this. This is one of the area where representation has to be made by us during investigation to help the client. And now investigation is going on at every places, and we must be watching that. The next representation we made is a scrutiny of returns. See, nowadays, when we file GSTR1 return, GSTR3B return, and so many other returns, the various companies also, superintendent and other officers, take up the return for scrutiny. Actually, if you see the return, it's a self-assessed return. And in the self-assessment return, they call for certain information to verify the data which is available. They also try to inform the GSTR, look at GSTR 9, because GST 9 is a reconciliation document. And whether you have paid the taxes properly or not, that is the purpose of ascertaining. Generally, we have seen that the information which is asked is for RCM supplies, for export of services if you have treated, exemption which you have claimed, and the difference if any is pointed out in table GSTR 9. Each one will take a lot of time, but one thing I'll tell you, whatever they ask for, again, you need to substantiate with your ledger account. See, in case of RCM ledger, we take the example of RCM ledger. What we do is, either the RCM will come up from the ledger account straight to the financial account, or it may have to be extracted from the financial account and separate Excel sheet is made out. As you are aware, we have a statewide registration. We need to prepare trial balance statewise, or if not, the code should be available statewise. Now, RCM in GTA, goods transport agencies, have forward basis, both options are available, and reverse basis. Some of the transporter whom we have engaged may be paying on a forward basis, and some of the transporter may be writing on a RCM basis. Ultimately, in our financial ledger, it will be booked as a transportation expenses total. And some companies we have seen even inward transportation is also booked in the same transportation expenses. Now, when the amount of transportation shown in the balance sheet, say it is 5 crore, but you have paid RCM only of 2 crore, because balance 3 crore is on the forward charges. So when the department is scrutinizing the ledger and say return, and you have shown RCM 2 crore, he immediately turns around and says your trial balance shows 5 crore and you are paying on 2 crore. Now, in such cases, what happens is, either we have a separate ledger, GTA reverse charge, GTA forward charge, transportation forward charge, transport reverse charge, or else we should have a bifurcation available with us as to which entry relates to RCM forward charge and which relates to backward charges, reverse charges. Very often we have seen that in such cases, when the department asks for now, okay, 5 crore, can you give us a breakup of what is 2 crore you have paid and why you are not paid for 3 crore? The breakup is not due. Because nowadays, what we have seen in accounts, everybody looks at your laptop, and if somebody has to go to the base document, there are rarely people available because of shortage of staff or whatever document. There are rarely people will say, no sir, we have done it correctly. And there the information needs to be given. Same happens in the reverse charge in the import of services, where you have considered the place of supply in India, outside India, and you have not paid the tax. They always look at the balance sheet amount. In the notes to accounts, you have a foreign expenditure incurred in foreign currency. Now, this expenditure incurred in foreign currency will have expenditure on goods, and expenditure on the services where the place of supply is outside India, you are not liable to pay, and expenditure in foreign currency in place of supply in India. And these bifurcation should be available, because what we have seen in the companies, the tax persons are not, while finalizing the balance sheet, are not involved. When the details are given, at that point of time, if the information is not given and during audit and all, then this results in the show cause notice. Same way, legal expenses. Legal expenses incurred for the services provided by advocate, it attracts reverse charge. For services provided by a non-advocate, doesn't attract reverse charge. Now, these information, you see, if the client does not provide, you remember, if ultimately it results in a show cause notice, the client has to give the same details. You can avoid the show cause notice if you give the details proper. So scrutiny of return, you can go representation. Here, people, there is no problem. You can represent properly, and you are aware what the officer is saying. In case of investigation, you are not aware as to what is his point. Here you get all the details in this. Third is audit. See, audit and inspection, generally the audit should be preceded by the letter from the department asking for various information. They will give you a letter that we want this information as per their internal circular, that the internal procedure, they have to first collect the information, and once the information is collected, they have to scrutinize the information to arrive at as to what is to be seen during audit. This is very essential. You're going to look at the credit portion, you're going to look at the output supply, you're going to look at the reverse charge, or you're going to look at the export of services, exemption being claimed. All these factors, they have to first and foremost arrive at the internal note has to be prepared. And then the question comes up, going to audit and verification of the documents at the business premises. If you explain this information properly, at the time when the information is asked from the audit by the client, by the department, you will find that most of the time we have seen that when we explain this properly, the audit itself has not come because they were satisfied with the payment of taxes which you have made. But if information itself is not furnished, people just, because it's a lengthy information, and once the lengthy it's a 1 or 2 box file information goes in this, if not given properly, then they come for audit. Now, here audit process, maybe you've seen some of the multinational companies, they have outsourced the entire indirect tax department to the various outsourced companies. And then the actual information they are not aware, actual transaction they are not, and they are handling the audit section. Some companies appoint chartered accountants for the purpose of providing the information to audit department. Now, a person can extract the information from the audit department, from the section, but when it comes to explaining the actual nature of transaction, what is the transaction, why tax is paid, why not paid, and what is the rate of tax paid, what is the exemption claim, this again, a chartered accountant who may be outsider may fail in providing all this information. And that is where the currently, as you are aware, that we have a statewide registration, and in 90% cases we have seen that the all returns are filed from Bombay, from the main head office or corporate office. Hardly any person is available in the various branches to look at the to comply with the various formalities under GST. This results in, if the person you have, say you are in Bombay and your place of business, principal place of business in Tamil Nadu is X place, and when the auditor visits Tamil Nadu auditor from Tamil Nadu visits that principal place of business, there is nobody to answer there. The person get worried there. Yeah, why this person is come? Now, this is again a big problem when we have a centralized looking at this issue. However, you should have the individual person. At least the person can go and provide the information. That much should be available, because you have another issues about the language. If the central authorities come for an audit, you can speak in English and talk to them. But if the state authorities come, you should better talk in the regional language, the state language. That will give you a lot of comfort to that person. If you start speaking in English and other languages, it creates issues. We have seen this. Anyway, so audit, if the audit function is totally outsourced, a chartered accountant is giving the information, one has to be very, very careful that the nature of transaction, if you are in for providing, then naturally you have to be very careful. Information preparation, this is to be most of the time we are facing so much issues that the information of 1 year is given in the second year wrongly given. Quantity of purchase goods, X quantity for 17-18 is given for 18-19. For 18-19 given for 17-18. Now this year may mismatch is there. Availability of credit. One needs to be very careful, and this results in show cause notice. Thereafter you go on explaining, the department doesn't accept, the audit section doesn't accept this. Therefore, preparation of information needs, because subsequently when the show cause comes to you, which all results in this thing, it becomes very difficult for us to undo what has been done. Every time department accepts me, sir, this was given by their department. We have not given this. We have not got this. So when we see actually litigation, when we go, we find this, that information itself was wrongly informed at this lowest. But however, if the company has given the information, then after the department auditor representative has scrutinized the various documents and representation information, that he frames up as to what is the point on which there is a discrepancy between what he feels right and what he feels doesn't right. He will give you those points in maybe handwritten or this thing. At that point of time, the client may ask you, please come and explain to me. Now, as an example, Ashwin, you are providing exempted service, and you exempted service, and you are providing taxable service. You are required to proportionately reverse the credit for input and input services under Rule 42 of the GST rules. While computing the quantum of credit, you must have seen 42 in 42. There is a T1, T2, T3, T4 and all this. The T4 is for what services are exclusively used for taxable supply. So that you are not, what services you are used for a taxable supplies, you are not considered while determining the quantum of reversal. So you say your total credit is 20 crore, out of which you have come to a conclusion that 15 crore is utilized entirely for taxable supply. Therefore, you have computed the reversal only for 5 crore. The now department goes in detail and says, please explain how this 15 crore is exclusively for taxable supply. You have to go on the nature of supplies and explain this. Explain it by documentary evidence that X party, Y X transaction, Y transaction, Z transaction. This is the nature of our transaction, input services, and these are used exclusively for the taxable supplies. Very often, friends, we don't see much such details being given. And parties are not able to explain. This is one example I give. There are so many other examples which can be given, and which results in, after explaining, if you have explained and department has not accepted, because that comes in a part of show cause notice, that you have explained this and it has not come. We have a classic example. In research and development, party was actually doing a research activity. So they were getting a product and they were making it from A to B. I mean, you have to go on experimenting. How does the customer wanted that he should develop a B from A, and B should have A, B, C, D quality, XYZ qualities. To develop that XYZ quality, you have to go on experimenting from A, that I have produced A, then I applied A1, whether I got B or not, then I apply A2, whether I got B or not. I go on testing. I mean, this is a permutation combination goes on in the research activities. At every stage when you develop, you have to go on testing it out, whether you got B, quality of B or not. The department has, because this was not explained to them in detail, the department said you're doing a testing activity, and for testing activity places are in India, and therefore your service is not export of service. A huge demand, hundreds of crores of demands raised. That is where I'm saying preparation of information and representation of legal provision has to be proper. Once you explain this properly, I mean, I'm not saying 100%, but you can avoid many of the problems at the audit stage itself. And if you are not giving a proper information at the audit stage, friends, it becomes very, very difficult, which is not backed up by your transaction. It becomes very, very difficult for any person representing as to why that information was not properly given at the audit stage. The department in show cause notice invariably refers to your letter in which you have given the information. And then you go on contradicting your own letter, saying this was wrongly given, I made a mistake. Then you go on explaining what mistake you made at this. So representation during audit, at least this has one advantage is that the authorities do tell you as to what is their objection. And then you can substantiate that. In case of investigation, the such authorities do not tell. In scrutiny also, there is nothing in writing, but it is in audit, the objection comes in writing to you. And they have a monitoring committee meeting, MCM they call it, invariably. The audit objection raised by the auditors, which is the rank of a deputy commissioner or assistant commissioner, and your reply thereon is discussed. Kindly see, your reply has to go before the monitoring committee takes up the issue. They have a fixed date for meeting, and the audit objection comes to you. Then your reply has to go. Reply should be very exhaustive, authoritative. The person of additional commissioner and commissioner chair the meeting. And there, very often we have seen the commissioners are very good nature, and they will invariably look at your reply and then decide whether this particular objection which the department has taken is sustainable or not sustainable. If it is not sustainable, then they do not go further for issue of show cause. But if you do not reply properly with all legal provisions, explaining the activity, explaining the law which is involved in it, why you have taken a particular exemption, and why you have considered the services as not import of service, not paid reverse charge, and all this needs to be explained to them. And then naturally they may accept. If they accept, they will not give a notice. If they do not accept, then it will come to a show cause. I mean, there is one stage where you need to give it properly in the law. And this, some of the commissioners are very good. If they have any doubt, they may call you also for a personal discussion, and that time also they will you can explain to them in this. That can save you from the further. See, normally the audit, as I told you, the audit is preceded by a letter and all this. But inspection, search and seizure is not preceded by any letter from the department. In Maharashtra, particularly in Maharashtra, we have seen the state department has taken this route. Central department, when they want to come for audit, they will give you a letter and ask you for various information. The state department, because in the prior to GST, there was a service tax, there was a excise and customs. These are three major customs. Still, is there, But excise and custom, the department that regularly was visiting the business premises of the company and were auditing by following this process. But state hardly had this process. They never have audited the premises in the records in the premises of the registered person. They have invariably during the verification of return called for a record in their office and done this. Now the same thing, they do not go for audit provision. They straight away come for inspection. What we have seen is that under section 67, they'll bring the search warrant, and I mean, normally the officers, when they come for a search warrant, 3-4 officers, people get afraid. It is not a search warrant, nothing to search in many companies, because there are hardly any cash transaction, hardly any transactions which are camouflaged and all that. So, but when they come with a search warrant, the officers and the people get afraid. But let me tell you, when state authorities are bringing a search warrant, there's nothing to search. They will come and sit in a one room and you have to go and get information. The search warrant, otherwise they have to go on searching various locations. The more problematic area is that after, you must have seen that in Kanpur, in one of the search, in the residence of the person, around huge cash of 200 crore was intercepted. After that, these people also come to the residence of the CFO or maybe director or the owner of this thing. Now, this creates a hue and cry in the houses. Normally they come at around 9:30, 10 o'clock. If family may be busy in cooking and other activities, but then what we have observed is, although they go to the residence of the higher authorities, higher key personnel, but they do not have much this thing. They just go and take a round, and then they take a panchanama and say nothing is available here. So they are also aware that no record can be kept in the office from residence of the person, unless they have specific intelligence that something is stored in the residence of the person. Here also, the approach of the department, although they bring a search warrant with them, is not to search the premises, but they come with certain specific information, specific calculation on the certain points, and which they will definitely ask you for that. Here, generally in inspection and this, our experience is they would like to see that some amount is debited and some amount is recovery is made. And that recently board has also calculated that there is circulated that there is no necessity of making a payment under section 74 and 75. There is no pressure should be brought into all this thing. That is circular is there. But you friends, what you find is that for 15 days, 20 days, every day the person has to go on providing information to them. And they invariably come at 10 o'clock and lock the offices before going. And this creates a problem with the day-to-day affair, day-to-day working of the company. And therefore, practically it is seen that many companies say, all right, we make some payment and close the issues. The inspection here again, once they verify the documents and information, they also take out a point. And on the point, you can make a representation, make a discussion with them. Some of the officers are very good. They will call you for discussion. You can make a legal representation. Then they take a statement of the points which they have noted. The statement is taken of the CFO or the tax head or whatever it is before closing of their inspection report. Whatever points are noted in the inspection, that form the basis for further investigation by them. Now, once they go away, then they will call you for the further discussion as to whatever you have made the payment, what you are saying, what he is saying, and all that. Ultimately, it results in a DRC 01, 01A, and then the show cause notice. So here also approach is similar to what the audit is there. The only difference is that the audit is preceded by a letter of information, but search is not preceded by this. Actually, it should not be called as search. This is similar to audit, except that there is no precedence of the search listing. This is what we observed in this. All these activities which you have seen, invariably, even if you have explained to them properly, they have given the proper information, it is quite possible that the department may not accept the submissions which you are making. And therefore they say, no, we do not agree. We as per us, this should be the position. Your export of service is not there, or your import of service, you are required to pay the reverse charge, etc., etc. They have their own, you are not entitled for an exemption with this notification. Whatever the reasons they have, they will give you. And as per, in the pre-GST era, there was a circular from the board that they should call you for a pre-show cause consultancy. The idea was that if during whatever after show cause you are going to make a submission and the hearing, the same thing should be done before issuing a show cause notice, and therefore the litigation will be reduced. But such provision has not done any much difference. The pre-show cause notice is merely a formality, which they do it, and they will giving you opportunity of personal hearing. At least you must make an attempt to see that the show cause is avoided, because when show cause is there, it takes at least a decade for you to get the show cause notice decided and settled. At that same approach should be taken in the pre-show cause notice also. Factual position, legal submissions, all this needs to be properly explained to the officer. And at least when you see a show cause, the fact is properly narrated. At that point of time, you can make a correction. If you have any during audit and all this thing, if you are not given the factual position properly, you can give the position properly and give in writing that this is a factual position. So that on the fact, at least both department and yourself are very on the same page. There is no difference between the two of you. Now, when you appear before the authority, there is a personal hearing memo is there. You have to write a personal hearing details. And this is the details of the memo which is mentioned in the personal hearing. Please record this in personal hearing. Normally, they should give you a memo of personal hearing as to what you are submitting. Very often we have seen that because of the non-availability of their stenos and all these infrastructure facilities for recording, they do not record the details. But what we normally do is we carry our submissions in writing, and we say written submission. It may be a repetition, but you should put everything in writing. It's like a representation before the authorities. Whatever point of law, whatever factual position, you put in writing. And in PH memo, they write, party made an additional written submission today. That itself is sufficient to show that you have made this submission. Because sometimes the department, if there is a different dispute as to whether a particular submission was made by you or not, particular point was taken by you or not. If the officer concerned has recorded your PH memo, your submission in the show cause notice, it's not a problem. But if he has not recorded that in the show cause notice, then naturally you have to fall back to your PH memo and say, sir, we made the submission before him, but he has not recorded this in writing. But now this is a proper representation which has been made. So in PH memo, at the time of personal hearing, you take the things in writing from him and carry the things in writing and do it. Then next representation, you before make an AAR. Now this is slightly different than earlier notice. See, earlier department was raising an objection. In investigation, department was raising an objection. In audit, in scrutiny, the department was raising an objection. and you are replying. So the objection, whether in writing or oral, you knew what they are asking for. But in case of AAR, now you are telling the department that, look, I am carrying out a particular activity, and this activity I want to classify under XYZ and attracting duty of 10%, 5%, whatever that rate you are applying for this. So now you are, up till now, objection, or you need to satisfy the objection taken by the department. Now here you need to substantiate, to prove by law as to what you are saying, what you are claiming is correct. There's a difference in representation. The purpose of representation there was only to satisfy the objection being raised by the department, so that it doesn't result in a further notices to, further demand from the department. But here, before commencement of the activity, or even during activity commencement, the department, you are coming around and saying, sir, my rate of tax should be so, my value should be so, my export of service should be so and so. And that makes a difference in representation. Because here you need to explain explain your activity on which you are asking for the ruling, and give the reasons as to why you want to classify, or whatever that you want, that particular activity should be attract particular rate of tax. So here you have to make a positive submission from your side as to why you consider that ruling is this there. Friends, if you look at the AAR in income tax or even in service tax, it was being headed by Supreme Court judge, retired Supreme Court judge, and the hearing was also very transparent. The law points and other points was very clearly understood. He was no doubt supported by the commissioner or commissioner rank person, but he was the chairman of the AAR ruling, and therefore he used to properly understand and do the ruling properly. But current AAR consists of joint commissioner from state and joint commissioner from center. The knowledge of the experience in the knowledge of Supreme Court judge cannot be compared with the knowledge and experience of the joint commissioner. And therefore, you find that the ruling, the quality of ruling is not as high as used to be in the income tax service. And hence, invariably, you find that the ruling is against the assessor. Because ultimately, they're a revenue officer. Supreme Court judge was not concerned as to whether revenue is there, revenue is not there. He will give a ruling what he feels is correct. But here in this case, although revenue officers are there, therefore they look at the most of the time we see. As far as we are concerned, we need to be careful. If you look at the very often, the department, the person is seeking a ruling just to know the exact rate of tax and livability. The reason is, in a government contract, whether I should pay 12% or 18%. So I'll be sure. Once the AAR ruling is there, if the, say, in Bombay BMC has taken a stand that it is not chargeable to tax, you show him the AAR ruling, he will give you reimburse with the tax. Now, this is the reason why AAR is there. The point which I'm making is that representation before AAR or triple AAR is slightly different nature than the earlier. Here you are positively, you need to substantiate what you are saying is correct. Therefore, you need to back up all your judgments and other things and factual position into. Now we come to the other stages, commissioner appeals and tribunal. See, up till now we have seen that the authorities investigate, raise objection, then it crystallizes into show cause notice. Show cause notice gives you allegation as to why he feels that particular activity should attract tax or exemption should not be there. Mr. Sandeep will explain to you when we draft it out, reply to show cause notice and other things. The exact allegation is made out. Once your reply appeared for personal hearing, the adjudicating authority, the lower authority, will pass an order. He may accept your submission. He may not accept the submission. If he accepts the submission, the demand is dropped and there is no further activity required to be carried out by you. However, if he does not accept the submission, then he will pass an order against you, confirming the demand, confirming the penalty, interest, etc., etc. And then you are required to go in appeal. Invariably, kindly see when you go in appeal, what you need to see is what is the point on which he has not accepted your contention. That point of law must be very clearly understood. Because here, generally, I mean 90% cases, the point of law is seen. The factual position is determined either at the audit, investigation, or in reply to show cause notice. Unless you feel that while deciding the show cause notice, the commission, the adjudicating authority has not considered the fact which are narrated in the reply properly. So when you appear before make a representation before Commissioner Appeal, kindly always read the finding portion in the order and try to understand why he has not accepted your position. Repeating the same thing again and again before the Commissioner Appeal without answering why the lower authority has not accepted your position will not help you. Because at this stage, the difference between you and department is very much crystallized. It is there in the paper. As I said, at the investigation stage, at the scrutiny of written stage, there is nothing in writing from the department. You only go on giving information. But in AR also, the department does not say why I am not accepting. He passes an order. Here the order is already passed. And since the order is already passed, the difference between you and department is already crystallized. And all you need to satisfy the Commissioner Appellate Authority is that whether the department is correct or incorrect by factual position. Kindly, now your focus of argument should be only on the finding portion of the adjudicating authority, and that more particularly why he has not accepted yours. You need not repeat what you already said in reply. The reply may be 100 pages, but your finding may be 5 pages. You need to consider those 5 pages. And don't repeat, go on repeating. We have seen that Commissioner Appeal also, the people go on representing the same thing and again and not coming to the actual point. And when they write Commissioner Appeal has not accepted this position. That's where the representation is. Here again, you are required to file a PH memo, personal hearing memo that we already discussed. And kindly, as I explained to you in that situation also, kindly ensure that you carry your representation in writing, so that the Commissioner Appeal only the PH memo writes that party has made a representation in writing, and this is the written submission is taken on record. Here the case laws which you want to rely upon, the particular para in the case law which you want to rely upon, that also should be carried by you. And more preferably in the form of a compilation. So during discussion on this, you can hear it. Here you must make the one thing very clear. Nowadays the hearing may be online. Whatever submissions you want to make before commission appeal, and those submissions, compilation of case law should be available in this file. Very often we have seen that whenever we submit it before the authorities, you have a stamp available of a dispatch clerk, but it does not reach the file of the commission. So when you are going arguing before him, you find that you are referring to a particular document, he doesn't have that. You have to, whatever licensing you have to do, you please ensure that it goes in the file. The page numbers are there, so that when you are on the online referring to page number 68, he also refers to 68 and comes to the same explanation as the same understanding as you are want to say. Otherwise, you go on repeating your this thing, he will never understand what are you saying. So this is before the commissioner appeal. Same method is adopted in tribunal. In commissioner and commissioner appeal, the only difference is that you have a closed hearing. It's not open for a public. You make a representation. He doesn't have to announce the order himself. And there is no, by and large, there is no representation. The department assistant commissioner or commissioner don't do it. Superintendent doesn't come and argue before the authorities. That's what our experience is. But in case of tribunal, there is always there's a departmental representative, and the hearings are open to the public. It is anybody can go and stand there, sit in the tribunal, and listen to all the hearings which is available. The tribunal also has a dress code. In the case of this is a dress code available, you must go in the dress code. Otherwise, although you have authority letter, you may not be allowed to appear in this. Sometimes tribunal has a difference in this thing, that in a sense that they will accept your appeal and then they scrutinize that all details are available in the appeal, like you paid 7.5% of the or 10% of the 7.5 or 10% of the tax amount as a pre-deposit, and then there's all signatures are available, documents are attached, all these are seen. The defect memo is raised, and you to see that defect is removed before the appeal numbers are granted. Otherwise, you get what is known as the diary number. If you want to mention any matter before the tribunal, as a matter of courtesy, you must go before the bench takes up the regular matter, or when bench is about to conclude the proceeding, about to rise. At that time only, you can mention a matter, whatever you want to mention. Currently, tribunal has a huge pendency. For service tax, there is a 5 years pendency. For excise and all, there is a 10 years pendency. And therefore, if you want an early hearing to be done, out of turn hearing, you have to file a miscellaneous application before the authorities. In Mumbai, generally they follow up because of the huge pendency. They see that if early hearing is granted, by and large, only when the tribunal it is already cases are decided before this. If it is not a decided case, by and large, they don't grant early hearing because they are already burdened with so many other appeals and other matters. Therefore, they avoid granting an early hearing in this. Now, what we need to see is that the personal hearing, granting of personal hearing is mentioned in the section 75(4). It is mandatory for a person, for any authority in GST to grant you personal hearing, whether you are asked it or not asked. But invariably in your reply, Sandeep will explain to you that you must add, we wish to be heard in person. That last sentence should always be available in the reply to show cause notice. So that what we have seen is, as I said, you see this granting of personal hearing, passing an order, giving a show cause notice. This was never practiced in a state. These central authorities, commissioner, additional commissioner, joint commissioner, they are all used to giving a show cause notice, granting personal hearing, passing an order. It's a routine thing for them. I mean, they've been doing for last so many decades. But state had never had that inclination. Inclination has never had that procedure. They have always called the person. I mean, they'll say next hearing is so and so date, you come. I mean, is it right or wrong? So, and therefore you find the state authorities have passed many orders without granting personal. Friends, such orders, no doubt appealable against the Joint Commissioner appeal. But High Court, if you go by writ petition in High Court and claim that personal hearing is not granted to you, High Court will set aside the order and will direct the authorities that you please get the personal hearing made. So if he personal, I mean, I'm not saying personal result can differ, but at least the same person, when he hears you again, or it may, by the time person may change. Today, why we are seeking this? If in GST every day we have a new law coming up, new procedure, new judgments coming up. Recently, you must have seen Supreme Court said ocean freight is not chargeable to tax, IGST. Whereas department has been taking objection after objection that the IGST is payable on the ocean freight. Now, if suppose they have passed an order and the High Court has remanded the order, now if you were to hear this, he will definitely give you relief. Recently, 2B, 3A differences. Earlier, there was no clarification from the board as to which are the differences you can accept, which you do not accept. Maharashtra government has issued the clarification that some of the differences which are there, because in early stages, somebody may have shown in B2C transaction. Now you don't allow me to amend the 3B to 2A. Now, all these differences can be made as we are moving forward. The department is also giving a relief administratively by issuing a circular that if you comply with these formalities, I will accept this position. We have seen this. I mean, we have seen that in 2A, 3B differences, the department is started accepting some of the invoices, and they say, all right, we will not proceed further in this. So it is advisable that if you are not been heard personally, then you can go to High Court and get the things relieved. The qualification of representation is there. Documents required, all these are documents required for this. The representation skill, of course, as you more go on representing, you'll realize the skill is required, because very often when you are looking at when you are appearing before the authorities, you're from his body language, you can understand whether he is understanding, he is with you, he is agreeing with your argument or is not agreeing with your argument. Then what questions he is asking for it, more particularly in tribunal or in commissioner appeal. Some of the commissioner appeal argues very well what is against you, what is in favor of you. Both things are argued. I mean, how to mold your representation, looking to the answer questions from the authorities. That skill you can develop only when you continuously appear. I mean, then only you come to know. Sitting here, you will not, I mean, nobody can say what, this is not this is an art actually, there is no science in this. Your knowledge should be there. Then you should be able to explain to the authorities as to why he is saying what is wrong, incorrect. And please try to, I mean, avoid that, sir, you are incorrect. And this hurts the person, and this may result in adverse orders to you. Anyway, that skill needs to be developed with you. Then we'll see. These all submissions I already discussed with you. Now, legal submission in this, which I already explained to you, that you must carry with your representation with you, so that the factual and legal submissions are recorded in in the books of in your personal hearing, and the judgment and ruling, you must continuously update yourself by advanced ruling, judgment, and all that. Last, in the this is a threat which is always given by every authority: arrest under GST law. Let me tell you the reason why authorities are arresting and why judges are also. See, currently these magistrates, before whom the application for arrest goes, the department, as far as the procedure of arrest is, the department invariably record a statement from the beneficiary, from the person who is benefited, and person who is involved in such a carrying out the activities. Normally, a chartered accountant will not be a beneficiary. He may have done various, prepared the record, kept the records, and filed the returns and all that. He may be arrested for that. In such a case, the beneficiary may give a statement that, sir, I am not aware, my chartered accountant done everything on this. See, such statement given, and the authorities sometimes use the high-endness for the purpose of recording a statement also. The action today, if the beneficiary is unwilling to pay the amount of credit which has been taken, then the only option left to the department is to arrest the person. I mean, invariably, the department is also not interested in arresting anybody if they are able to get the money which has been wrongly taken as a credit. But if the credit is not reverted back, and person says, sir, I am not aware, I do not have money, and then they are left with no consequences and do it. Very often we have seen that this situation arises when the person is unwilling to respond to summons which are being issued by the authorities. The authorities go on issuing the summons after summons, asking for information, asking for the details, which is not provided by. And with the authorities, the people do not go. I mean, they fear. And that fear, once you do not represent before, say you should summon 5 times and you're not gone before him, then naturally his suspicion becomes a pakka. Yeah, look, there is something fishy about it. Why you're not coming here? Then they make a search and all that. So that is how, if you respond to the authorities' question, whatever fact you have, whatever documents you have, whatever mistakes which you have made is all right, and you are willing to pay this amount, I mean, whichever benefit you have accrued for this, and then this thing can be avoided. Let me also tell you, today what has happened is, this is a new, it is not that the evasion of taxes not taken place in excise and service tax and all these places. It was there in the excise also, it was there in the service tax also. You can look at the excise invoices, excise this thing, and there are n number of cases where they have taken steel scrap, metal scrap. Metal scrap has a history, even today also, and the past also. Steel scrap also has a history. That the invoices which are which credit is taken are not the proper invoices. But the arrest was not made because of the fact that people used to reverse part of the credit. Now here in these cases, currently in the GST, what we find is the people who have taken the credit, they have not filed the return itself. The document itself is not available. Now, if you file GSTR 1 properly, GSTR 3 properly, and everybody has filed in your group and circular, then you'll find the problem is not that big. I mean, you can declare to the authority that ultimately goods have moved around and maybe I have paid higher credit by 1 crore, 50 lakhs and all that. The second aspect is that the authorities have also started magnifying the credit which is available. The amount of credit which is available, and the judges who come from a very, they have not seen the excise and custom earlier. They have been, I mean, before them, the some thief comes who has stolen goods worth of 5 lakh, 10 lakh, and he every day is hearing bail plea of such person or the imprisonment of such person, then if he suddenly the department comes and says 50 crore rupees is involved in this thing credit, there he feels 50 crore is too much. I mean, when he's in hearing day in and day out of 5 lakh, 10 lakh rupees theft, then somebody comes and says 50 crore of government has been stolen, then the judges get biased. Friends, there are two things to be seen here. As an institute, we must take up a task of explaining the judges as to what is the law, what kind of transactions takes place, and what is the government loss in the transaction. Because when the department comes around and says 50 crore is a loss, the judges always accept that. And then they take whatever they have been doing. From the institute level, I mean, at each position, the district magistrate in Bombay, metropolitan magistrate is there, in somewhere district magistrate judicials are there. We need to educate them. We need to go and ask for this, give information. So we have been hearing all this thing, but this is not the fact. This is the fact. It is not that 50 crore, 100 crores have been evaded. And that's not the fact also. Therefore, you find that department, although has issued, they arrested so many people, hardly they have issued show cause notice. Judicial process starts. This is a pre-judicial. I mean, this is also judicial. I'm not saying arrest is only a pre-judicial. This thing. Recovery process starts from show cause notice. They are not still not issued show cause notice, which may come in the maybe August or September 23, not before that. Now you have been hearing this for last 3 years. Why they are not issued? They also know that they have, if they issue show cause notice to pay people, how much their cash will stand, case will stand. You'll only know what is the quality of show cause notice. So we need to educate the judges as to what is the law, and as a chartered accountant, if I am representing day in and day out, there is no person who can run away. I mean, today you don't arrest him and he runs away from the department. See, only the bail is granted because there's 2-3 conditions are there. There's no flight risk. Flight risk means the person will abscond himself, and there is no tempering of evidence. The department is all, by this time, department also has the evidence of records which is available with them. And there's a cooperation. Cooperation is shown by the, whenever the document, whenever the they are called by the department, he comes and presents whatever record he has. So once the cooperation is given, what you are going to achieve by keeping him inside the custody? Inside the custody means only that he is available for your interrogation as and when you call for it. If you are any otherwise coming, then what further will be achieved by that? So what you must ensure from the our paternity side is that the information is given, cooperation is given, and then as and when they are called for, you've gone for the information. The second is the important thing, we need to educate the judges about the law and the kind of, I mean, with the factual information available, various case laws, the institute can call for various cases under which this is arrest has been taken place and present before the judge as to this is not the fact. If there is no evasion of 100 crore, 200 crore has been pointed out. There is only evasion of so much amount, which is not an evasion. If 3B and to GST 1 has been filed, there is practically no evasion of this. And this will all be seen maybe after 10 years when the show cause notice gets adjudicated by the tribunal. The first time the tribunal, when it takes a view on this kind of show cause notices, that time only will come to know as to what the department has done is correct or incorrect. But as of now, because that may take, as I said, maybe 10 years, if not earlier than that. But as of now, at least if we educate the judges, the problem which we are all fraternity is facing can very well be reduced. I'm not saying eliminated, but reduced. If you try to educate 100 judges, possibly 10 or 15 judges maybe such understand, and they may start questioning department, show me how 200 crore is the evasion. I'm not saying 100% of them, but some of them may, because they These judges come from a background where they do not have any tax laws. They have all been criminal lawyers or civil lawyers. Civil lawyers, so petty matters, family matters, and family disputes, and all this thing, domestic violence, and all. And these are hardly any amount is involved. I mean, we also had in tribunal one of the president coming from High Court. She was always had the as a magistrate had this amount of 2 lakh, 5 lakh. So she admitted in the tribunal that when the initial beginning, when I used to see the demand of 50 lakhs, 100 crore to 50 crore, I mean, she used to feel that what problem is been created. But when slowly after 6 months, they realize that all this is bogus demand which is raised by the department. So friends, we need to do this thing activity from our side, cooperation, and the ensure that compliance has been made from institute side, educating the judges and all other fraternities, so that the proper view can be taken by the judges. I think this is a major area of representation made with whatever experience I have shared with you. Friends, thank you very much. I'm sure this will help you in encouraging you in practicing the litigation area in GST. Thanks very much. Thanks over to Gautam. Thank you very much, friends. Gautam or who? Pinky is there. I think it's Pinky.
Yeah, fine, sir, fine. It's nice that you remember me.
I saw your name. You came for a while, and then suddenly your camera was off.
Yeah. At that moment, I joined the program, so at that moment the camera was on. So
Yeah.
it was nice to hear you. That's why I switched off my video to hear you only.
Yeah, thanks.
So, sir, there are some questions in the chat box and question answer session. If we can take.
Give me 2 minutes. I'll go to washroom and come, and then we'll answer.
Yeah, sure, sir. Welcome, Sandeep, sir.
Thank you, Vinny.
Yeah, how are you, sir?
Excellent. How are you?
Fine, sir. In the meantime, if you want to check your PPT presentation, sir, we can.
Yeah.
If you want to share, yeah. In the meantime, we can check the sharing. If you.
My colleague Pranav is sharing.
Yeah, it's and
yeah.
Slideshow.
Is it clear now?
It's the first page. Next.
Yes.
Yeah, it's moving. Yeah, it's moving. Yeah, it's moving. So just sir will come and he will address the question,
Yes.
question, and they will start your session.
No way.
I want to inform all the participants, please don't put your name and membership number in the chat box. It's not required. When you had registered yourself, with membership number was there only. Chat box is for question answer, or if you are facing any problem, or that's why. Please don't put. Sir, you are in. Yes, sir. We are waiting for you. Sir, first question is whether we can make additional submission to appeal once reply is already submitted.
Yeah. Before the order is passed, you should do that. And I must tell you one thing, you should obtain an acknowledgement from the dispatch clerk. So even if he has not considered, see what happens practically is if you submit this information at the dispatch counter, it should reach to the file of the commissioner. If it doesn't reach, he will pass an order without considering your this. If you can do some licensing and ensure that, it will be much advisable. But even if he not, at least that will help you in tribunal that I have made a submission before the lower authorities, and tribunal will consider that. So you can do that.
Okay, sir. And next question is our in Q&A session. In Q&A session, there are 10 questions. First is whether we can take ITC of any services like professional service for GST return against output GST of renting income.
Yeah, there's no problem. See, what you need to show is some business connection. Like suppose you have a rental income and you're auditing, or suppose your rental income of a property. Now you appoint an architecture to make a repair or some change the design for the building. I mean, bathroom making correction or some layout of the office to be made. Like this professional income, you can say that these have helped me in renting out. So you can take it.
Okay.
There's no problem. If you have elaborated what is the nature of professional income, service be more beneficial. But otherwise, we can take it.
Okay, so like if he want to give the place on of commercial rent or house rent, and
I see
he is doing
commercial-
architecture professional fees or like
this is why architecture. Suppose he has a rental income and somebody is filing income tax return. Income tax return is filing, and he has a rental income of say 50 lakh, 20 lakh, whatever that lakhs is there. So that also is providing a professional services. So he can take that credit.
Okay.
You need to comply with the Income Tax Act also, no?
Okay, sir. Next question is what course action to be taken in case when such a PH memo is not provided by the officer, normally in case of state jurisdiction for signing.
That state has a big problem with this. That's why I said you must put this in writing and whatever submissions you are making and take an acknowledgement. At the dispatch clerk, you must put this thing. This is a precaution you can take. You see, you can't antagonize authority, give me a PH memo. And that is a problem. So there the only option left with you is this.
Okay. Next question is there is repairs and maintenance to building which is amounting to immovable property. Client has not capitalized expenses in building but debited in P&L. Is ITC will be available on that?
That doesn't result in this thing. So that's a clear explanation is there that the capitalization should be there in order to consider this as a disallowance. If you have made a repairs and maintenance, it will be allowed to you. There's no problem.
Okay, but he should be the client should be capitalized that repairs and maintenance.
Not capitalized, should write to profit loss.
Okay, fine.
Capitalize it, then there's a problem.
Okay, and whether replying online for ASMT 10 in ASMT 11, that is replying on portal itself is not enough. As officer always ask that why submission are not made, and then we need to tell them that submission are made online. Further, they ask for hard copy of submission made online and say they are not considered online apply.
This problem will be there online, with many places. And Bombay at least is less, but if you go to interior of Odisha and all these places, you will have this problem. And you can't avoid this. Whatever you want to say, you submit it officially but submission on physical submission is not relevant. Most relevant is ASMT 11 put on the online. If you submit it physically, he may ignore it, he may not do anything, and you will not have no proof, because when the law provides electronically submitted ASMT 11, then you must submit that. Now, at least you should submit it. Whether officer is able to understand or not, it's a big problem. We find the orders are not uploaded. We have to go and tell them. Some adjudicating officer told us, sir, we don't know how to upload it. Then we have to send the person, you upload like this. Then he has uploaded the order. Now we have faced this problem. These are all can't help it. See, income tax
second,
income tax में क्या है कि it is central law, but
Yeah.
here authorities have a big issue.
सर अभी बीच में एक ऑर्डर में भी बोला ना कि स्टेट अपना अपना डिसाइड कर सकते हैं रेट वगैरह भी, ऐसा आया ना बीच में एक और भी.
हाँ, वो तो आएगा.
So
And
and
Sandeep, sorry.
sir. Next question was related to this here. If we visit tax officer on the appointed date, however he is not available, what can be done to prove our attendance?
You must write a letter and acknowledge it by the dispatch clerk, or send by
Okay.
email, whatever email officers has given. Both the things you should do it. You must show that you have presented yourself.
One Hitesh sir is asking, please share your thought in respect of the stay proceeding representation involving huge demands.
No, now there is no stay. I mean, you can you pay 10% or 20% of these things. If you feel that is a huge demand, you have to go with the writ petition to High Court only, and convince High Court that alternative remedy is not possible for me. So I don't have money to pay. It's a very rare case High Court can do that. It's not a problem, but you have to show, substantiate this. Otherwise, stay application is not possible.
Next is, while attending the hearing on behalf of client, when normal authority letter officer insists on form PCT5, which is for GSTP. So then
No,
how to attend hearing in such case by CA who is registered as, who is not registered in GSTP as form PCT as for registration number?
We are not required. PCT is GSTP is required by the person who is not a qualified otherwise. They have given a qualification. Certain qualification doesn't need a GSTP. Otherwise, you need to go for a GSTP practitioners. So
there is any prescribed format for authorization?
For PCT5, not GSTP, not for us. For us, so we normal authority letter is enough. We have been appearing. I mean, we don't face any problem in that.
Pinky madam,
Yes.
can we take other questions?
Yes.
Offline?
I thought that also, that because the question is. Yes, sir. We will send
Because
you all
sir
the
will
questions.
keep taking all the questions. You know, I have seen him. You ask about assessment, anything, he keep answering.
I have no.
Yes.
I mean, you can stop me. That's what I requested Pinky only, not me.
Okay, sir. So, sir, we will try to send all the question to you, and okay. Otherwise, if time will permit, we will take this question after the session.
No, I'll be leaving.
Whatever.
So please send it
Okay.
to me.
No,
Yeah,
so we'll
sir.
throw all
Yes,
the
sir.
questions to Sandeep sir if there'll be time, or we'll send it to your office, sir. If you can answer offline, that would be really
Sure.
Yeah.
So now I request Pinky madam to kindly propose well-deserved vote of thanks to sir.
Sir, thank you, Gautam. It's my proud privilege to give vote of thanks to Sir S.S. Gupta sir. I am really fan of Gupta ji. And if anybody asks me about if you know any lecturer or any faculty in GST, first the name come in my mind, S.S. Gupta. So it's our privilege that we are here to hear him and to say he is sharing his knowledge very well and his experience. So he's like when we are attending his class, his lecture, we are thinking that we are in a college classroom and he is giving us the lecture. Like, so, sir, thank you. You are very passionate about the subject and you are taking each and every aspect of the subject matter. So it was nice to hear you, sir. And we will call again and again. We want to hear you again and again on the topic. So, sir, thank you very much to accepting our invitation and take all the question in very lucid manner. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Pinky madam. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. It was a privilege for us to have you today. Thank you, sir. Okay. So now we quickly move to our next session, legal drafting. I think most of us as a chartered accountant, we used to struggle and we still struggle in legal drafting, and we are receiving a lot of suggestions that we should keep a dedicated session So now, so we have decided to include this session in GST litigation series. So now, Pinky Madam, over to you to introduce our today's, speaker for the session.
Thank you, Gautam. So, sir, CA Sandeep sir, with your permission, I want to introduce yourself. Sandeep ji he had the tax practice of Lakshmi Kumaran and Sridharan attorney in Pune. Sandeep is a chartered accountant and also enrolled as a member of the Bar Council of Maharashtra in Goa. Sandeep has a rich experience of over 17 years in the field of tax and regulatory. He's managing large portfolio of clients and advise them on issue related to tax law and regulation, and provides strategy or solution in respect of structuring, tax planning, and litigation. So clients rely on his strong commercial acumen and strategic approach to find winning end-to-end solution with the complicated legal framework. Sandeep has in-depth understanding of automobile, e-commerce, chemical, engineering, IT, banking, and financial, and from pharma sectors, and has been involved in providing solution on the recent tax controversies impacting these sectors. He is also expertise in providing hand-holding support to the client during complex tax investigations and litigation. Sandeep is a successful litigant and has argued matters relating to issue in respect of GST, service tax, VAT, central excise, custom, foreign trade policy before the appellate tribunal, advanced ruling authority, settlement commission, and other department authorities. He has also been involved in various continuous matters argued successfully in the High Court and Supreme Court. Sandeep is a regular speaker at various forums like CII, Association, Chamber of Commerce, and ICI, and he has delivered talks on various topics relating to taxation law and regulatory matters. And his practice area is custom, foreign trade policy, GST, service tax, central excise, international taxation, foreign exchange, regulation. So with this brief introduction, I want to invite CA Sandeep Sachdeva ji to speak about legal drafting in tax litigation. And we welcome you, sir. On behalf of WIRC, I welcome you, sir. Please, dais is yours, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you to Pinky ji for this introduction, Gautam bhai. And thanks to WIRC. Being a chartered accountant, it is always I must say, is a privilege. The way I started as a student, now as a chartered accountant speaking in this sort of prestigious forum, it's really a blessing moment, I must say. And I would also, I think the previous session, I think we all learned service tax reading Gupta sir's book, and in a very simple way, in a very systematic way. Even in a Lakshmi Kumaran Sridharan, whenever we are grappling with some issue in service tax, but the way systematically Gupta sir's book has put everything in a very systematic and sequencing manner, all circular, all notification, all provisions, and year after year and amendment after amendment. So I think the contribution of Gupta sir and the way very simply and lucid manner he explained his experience, and I think it was really inspiring for all of us. And thank you, Gupta ji. Please keep guiding and please keep sharing your thoughts to this community, and this is very, very important. Now, moving forward, I think the deliberation that we are going to have it from now, it is basically supplementing what has been set the tone by Gupta sir. We discussed about how to appear before the authorities and what way we should be representing before the authorities. But when it comes to drafting for the litigation, one should understand what is litigation. It's basically a dispute between two parties. There is some cause of action, there is some issue, either credit is denied or some tax demand is being made or or something of that. It is basically to whenever there is a dispute between two parties, and mainly in the tax department, the dispute is between the government and the assessee. And very interestingly, recently I come across a scenario because of the GST. It is really a arbitration disputes have really come up between the parties because of the very thing on GST. It is because of the rate. It is because of some anti-profiting issue. It is because of how much other party would have charged a tax and how much they have charged. It is purely on interpretation of the GST law. It really led to even arbitration between the parties. It really led to it is a commercial dispute between the parties. So therefore, one has to get a sense that litigation is the way the litigation gamut is increasing. It is not confined only with the fighting with the tax authorities. It's really expanding, and the role of the tax professionals is really is expanding in a bigger way to the large gamut of things. So therefore, please don't have a narrow sense of litigation. The litigation is not with the tax, it's really expanding. So therefore, once we are clear about the basic fundamentals of litigation, it becomes very easy to take that thing forward. So therefore, moving to the next point, see, every case is different. It is impossible to visualize all the scenarios and discuss that. But what are the few fundamental points which are common across all the litigations and most of the litigation which we have come across, and we try to put it basis the question that we get from the client, basis the scenario which we come across. We try to put all those scenarios and questions, and so that when we are really going for a drafting, if we are clear about these points and if we have some understanding about these points, then drafting becomes a little more easy. The first point is administrative principles. We all know that law is enacted by the parliament, and then there are delegated legislations. Basically, the rules are drafted by our CBEC, and then there are circulars, then there are notifications, then there are some standing orders, all sort of sequencing of things which are happening. The principle is the act should be aligned with the Constitution of India. Rules should be aligned with the act. Circulars and notifications should also be issued pursuant to the power given in the particular sections. And if any standing order has been issued or if any other circular has been issued, that circular should also be aligned with the law. But if we, as a tax professional, we keep on seeing there are so many circulars coming, so many administrative guidelines are coming, and sometime in a rush of things, we only see the circular. We don't see much about whether this circular is in line with what the provision of the law is or not. And most of the time we saw that some of that circulars and some of the administrative guidelines which have come are not aligned with the particular section. Recently, I come across a scenario. It was a VAT dispute between the parties, and we took the benefit of a particular entry in the entry in the VAT schedule, and where we paid tax at the rate of 5%. Government website has issued one list where they have shared, for educational purposes, they have shared where all the taxable rate for a particular thing. One of my client, they were manufacturing some processed food. Processed food is taxable at X rate, but processed food, when it's packed, which is having a brand name and this thing, there is no entry for that. Processed food is taxable at 5% and generic entry is 14.5%. Now, basis this, the kind of website schedule at a website which is not backed under a particular section. They are saying yours is a processed food, but with having a packing, and packing having a brand name, therefore you are not covered by here. But when we saw from where this list is coming, that list was not backed by a particular section, because each and every, you know, in VAT law, they say that the tax will be at 5% under a particular section, and then you see schedule A, B, C, etc. So therefore, what I'm trying to say is, instead of focusing on the content of the sections, content of the rule, we should also go back from where, under which power this particular section, this rule, this circular, this notification has been issued. We all know that in case of Laghu Bharati, when initially the tax has been introduced to the service receiver in case of GTA transportation service under service tax law, that levy was challenged on the ground that there is no section which says that tax is to be paid by the service receiver. And thereafter that 68(2) has been introduced, where they said normally the tax is payable by the service provider, but in certain cases the government can ask the service receiver also to pay tax. In case of Laghu Bharati, this was the very point which has been challenged before the Supreme Court, and Supreme Court has struck down that levy. So therefore, my humble request to all my professional friends is, instead of focusing on the content of the circular, rule or notification, also have a habit of going little beyond it. And once we are clear about this administrative principle that act should be aligned with the constitution, rule should be aligned with the act, and notification circular should also be under a specific powers, and whether they are aligned with this particular things or not. So once we are clear about this, then most of these challenges which are really bothering us, and once we go and tell the authority, sir, we agree with you, but this circular is not aligned with this particular thing. Today itself, some client asked me a question. In case of project export, they say we will give you a drawback, but if your sale value is more than 150% from your purchase price, we will not give you a drawback beyond that. And that they are saying there is some standing order has been issued by, say, Bombay Customs. But the point is this a standing order is aligned with the drawback rules? Whether the drawback rule says like this. So therefore, there are so many innocent circulars, so many innocent orders which have been issued, and which we treat as a chartered accountant community, we treat this as a law. Please go behind it and see whether this is reflecting a true position of law or not. So once we are clear about this, then it will be a little more easy to draft it. And that's why we take a lot of time as a student. I always treat myself as a student. We take a lot of time to thrash the point, to thrash the matter. Once we are clear about what to draft, then drafting will not take much time. Drafting is just a matter of few hours. But analyzing which point is to be drafted, that may take some time, days also. So this is one point I just thought I will mention because this is very relevant. Another point of natural justice, I think Gupta sir also explained this point very clearly. And I saw in many instances, some of the chartered accountants are taking a view that we are waiving off the right to appear in this matter. This is a very important right which is available. We should definitely make use of it. As Gupta sir also beautifully explained, that there are everyday new circulars, new notification, new judgments are coming. And if we go and appear before the authorities, the chances to get and winning our matter become very, very easy. Point number one. Point number two is the principle of equity also suggests that we should definitely make our point clear. And I saw, basis my experience, once, because generally all these officers, they don't read files well in advance. They generally rely on the judgment of their juniors. They will be drafting whatever that order is, and then simply they sign it. But if we go and appear before them and we make our point clear. And there are instances, I must say 20 out of 100, even at a officer level, we get a positive order. So therefore, natural justice is a very important point. And in case the natural justice is violated, that is one of the bigger point to challenge that order. And as Gupta sir also said, and we have experienced numerous times, if the natural justice is really violated, immediately the writ can be filed before the High Court and Supreme Court. And also I'll tell you why, because nowadays when to file an appeal, you need to make a mandatory pre-deposit. And assuming violating the natural justice, he passed the order. And assuming in your matter, the demand is running in crores. And if you file appeal, you need to make a mandatory pre-deposit, and you have excellent case. So therefore, in case of natural justice violation, we can straight away go to the High Court and get that order quashed and make sure that the hearing should take place. So therefore, there is always an inclination of the authorities to pass the order. And natural justice does not mean sometimes they give hearing that you come on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Generally, as per law, they have to give 3 hearings. And if somebody is traveling outside, giving hearing on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they may be saying that I have done the tick in the box. It is absolutely not tick in the box. In those situations, we can ask for some time for the hearing. They have given on a particular date, we can take another date if it is not suiting them. My experience is if we are proactively interacting with the department, there are chances that we can get the date adjusted as per our schedule also. So there is no problem. My request is we should definitely be attending the hearing. And if they have not given effective hearing to you, okay, effective hearing is very, very important. And just for a tick in the box, if they are doing that, that can also be the point for us to go and challenge at a later level. Please make sure whenever we are attempting any legal proceeding matter, whether the natural justice has been followed or not. What is non-speaking order? Non-speaking order means basically we took some argument, we relied upon certain document, we relied upon certain legal point, and they have not even dealt with it. And there is no finding dealing with that particular point. In case there is a non-speaking order, that is also an excellent point to challenge the order. And we saw in High Court, we saw even at a tribunal level, even at a quasi-judicial level, this non-speaking order is also one of the very important point. Therefore, one has to see what was the allegation in the Shoko notice, what was our submission on law, submission on facts, what are the judgments we have relied upon, whether he has dealt all these points or not. If he has not dealt with all these points, that can also be the ground to challenge that order. So why we are taking multiple argument and multiple point? Because in a litigation, you cannot stand on one leg. You cannot be standing only on one line of argument. You should have a multiple round of argument. And we do not know which argument eventually can bring you a success from the court or at a later date. So therefore, all these points, whenever as a professional we look at any Shoko notice or an order or something of that, these are the generally point we really look at it, whether this order is non-speaking, and some of those evidences are very crucial, and in a very innocent way, sometimes they duck it. I was appearing before some matter before the commissioner, and the question was on time bar. We all know that to attract time bar, they have to prove that there is a fraud suppression in the matter. Incidentally, in my case, the client had made a declaration in their return itself. That is point number 1. They have also filed a letter to the authorities. And then once I showed all these 2 evidences to the commissioner, I said, ma'am, these are the 2 evidences which are in my favor. On this point, you cannot invoke the time bar. And once the time bar things are done, then my whole demand will fall. And very conveniently, despite the fact we have shown those evidences, she has ignored and passed the order against me. But the point is, that order is a non-speaking order. Similarly, sometimes there are evidences on merit of the matter, certain clauses in a contract, certain technical evidences in case of classification of the matter, which they simply duck it. So therefore, non-speaking order is also very important point. Another argument is interpretation. We all will be thinking that we all know that interpretations. I'm not saying we don't know it, but interpretation, to my mind, is a line of thinking that how do we read a particular section. The literal rule is pure English meaning, and the mischief rule is what was the problem earlier in the law, what really led to this particular problem, and to correct that problem, what kind of amendment they have introduced. So therefore, the cardinal principle is the literal interpretations, and the statutory interpretations, that depends on a context. Assuming you are dealing with the exemption notification. For exemption notification, the law is very clear. It has to be strictly construed. Assuming the case which I was referring to, I am dealing with the exemption notification, that it says the processed food, and whether my food is a processed food or not. And it says processed food with no brand name. Even in the GST also, there is a tax rate that if there is this rice and all, they are sold in loose form, there is no tax. There is a tax rate is 0. If it is a packed form, the tax rate is 5%. But if somebody is clearing in a packed form and putting a brand name, or whether it is a company name, those sort of literal points are very, very important. How they have literally written that. Exemption notification are to be construed literally. Similarly, whenever you want to bring somebody into the tax net, that provision also needs to be read very literally, because that tax law cannot be read in a wider manner. Tax law have to be read in a very strict manner, because Supreme Court in a series of the cases said who is liable to pay tax. First is, what is a taxable event? Who is liable to pay tax? When he is liable to pay tax? Which value and which rate? I think these are the 5 fundamental points in any tax law. And if we are clear about these 5 fundamental points, we can interpret any tax law for that matter. But taxable event cannot be seen in a wider manner. The taxable event has to be seen in a very, very strict manner. So therefore, the statutory interpretation also varies, that in which context we are dealing with. Exemptions are very strict, but there are certain other points that once you are into the tax net, then it has to be read very, very widely. So therefore, what are the principles? One, literal rule, mischief rule, then there is a golden rule, that what is the purpose behind it, how even we saw in Mohit Mineral, the Supreme Court has gone to the parliament debate to even do that interpretation of whether the GST Council, the recommendation of the GST Councils are binding or not. So therefore, these sort of understanding are very, very important. Recently, I was grappling with some problem. There was one notification issued under customs. It says that we are giving exemption to the electronic goods. And in that, there was one line item, the heading of the notification, which is called marginal note. Marginal note says exemption for the electronic items. But within the text of the notification, there was a particular goods which may not be electronic goods. The question was, benefit of that exemption will be available or not. Then we were grappling now, how do we do that? Then we found there are judgments that heading of the notification cannot decide. The marginal note of the notification cannot decide what will be the scope of the interpretation. You need to see what is there in the text of the notification. So therefore, all these points, what scenario we are grappling with, I think that is very, very important. Then there are principles like specific versus general, whether the specific versus general will be applicable in case of exemption notification or not. So I think these are some of those finer points. I don't want to sort of put a very heavy stuff in the deliberation, but the point that I'm trying to make is once we are clear about some of these points, and which we will learn over the period when we start handling those sort of interpretation and handling those sort of a matter, then it becomes a little more easy. And those points really help us to win those particular things. When I started getting into the litigation, all these things appear to me is like a sort of a code word, the way people are talking. But slowly, when we start getting into that, then those things become a little more easy and a little more fluid and a little more useful also. So there are some legal doctrines. Basically, these are the doctrines which have come from a common law. And we have been using it also, like principle of nocitur socii, that it means if you really want to understand the meaning of a particular word, you need to see the company what it keeps. Okay, if there are, and nocitur socii is used in classification matter very oftenly, because in a classification matter you need to see if there is an animal, assuming dog, cat, or any other animal. If you have to give a meaning of any other animal, that doesn't mean that it will be lion. It means a dog, cat, these are mainly a pet. So any other animal should get a meaning from the dog, cat. So similarly, there are principles of adjustum generis. In our GST, we say whether there is a consideration or not, quid pro quo. So those are some of the legal doctrines which have evolved over the years and very much have been forming part of our day-to-day legal system. And once we get a hang of those sort of things, then interpreting a particular section, understanding that particular thing, then the word do the magic. Then we don't see, we immediately when we read it, how do we understand the context of comma, context of semicolon, the context of even all these punctuations. When I started in this legal profession after completing my CA, I was not aware that how much English is needed. But really, the basics of our language of English, or be it punctuation or be it pronunciations, I think if we are a little more closer and clearer to all these things, then interpretation becomes a little more easier. Now, another point, what I want to bring it here is condonation of delay. When a delay can be condoned, sometimes we could not file appeal in time, then what do we do? Whether the delay can be condoned or not. When the law of limitation will apply, when the law of limitation will not apply. The legal position is, if there is a specific time limit has been given in a law, like our first appeal is to be filed in 90 days, and there is a delay up to 30 days, the delay can be condoned. In that situation, the law of limitation will not come and applicable to us. And if you file appeal after 30th day, after 120 days from the date of the order, if you file appeal, that appeal will never be getting admitted. We should be aware of it. What is the delay? When can the delay can be condoned? When delay cannot be condoned? Like tribunal, high court, they have an inherent power to condone the delay of n number of days. But first commissioner appeal cannot condone the delay more than 30 days. So therefore, to understand and to have a clarity whether the delay can be condoned or not, if we are clear when the delay can be condoned and when delay cannot be condoned, I think that will become a little more easy when we are approaching particular legal drafting. Another point which you have come across is service of notice, because our time limit starts from the day the notice is served, and the notice must have been issued on a particular day, but it got served on a particular day to us. Service of notice, and sometime what tax department do, that happened during the COVID time also. In many matters we saw that they have issued a notice for the hearing, but notice did not reach because nobody was working at that point of time. Service of notice, there is a specific connotation, there is a specific rule which have been given in the law when you say the notice gets served. So therefore, these are also one of those finer points which we should keep it in mind. while approaching a particular litigation, whether notice gets served to us or not. Quasi-judicial authority. We all these revenue officers, these are quasi-judicial authority, or even tribunal member for that matter. Because they may be having administrative functions to see that amounts get recovered from that parties or not. But being a quasi-judicial authority, they need to pass a judicious order. So therefore, to understand that who are quasi-judicial authority, whether this is an administrative function they are doing, or this is a judicious function they are doing. Giving a registration, it is an administrative function, but passing an order in response to the show cause notice, they are quasi-judicial authority. So they are having a different roles to play. We should be aware of it, that know what are the roles in which form and section they are going to perform. Having a clarity of this particular thing will also helpful. Another is legislation by incorporation and legislation by reference. Like we saw in service tax law, this Finance Act 1994 and even GST also. Like there was a definition of goods. Assuming they say the goods mean the goods as defined in the Sale of Goods Act. There is one point. Second, goods means so and so, so and so, so and so. Probably that definition will be verbatim what is written in the Sale of Goods Act. If they say goods mean goods as defined in the Sale of Goods Act, it means a legislation by incorporation, a legislation by reference. We are referring to that. Okay, it means tomorrow, if there is an amendment in Sale of Goods Act in the definition of goods, that amended definition will also be applicable to me. But if I define the definition of goods verbatim, what is written there, it means whatever courts have taken position under the Sale of Goods Act with respect to that very definition, those judgment also I can use it. Whatever meaning courts arrived at, interpreting that particular thing, that will be equally applicable to me. So therefore, whenever any particular thing has really come up, and we saw in service tax, we saw in GST also many times, that a particular definition, what is being incorporated from a particular law. And in fact, we saw some of those things which have come in the service tax law, which were incorporated from outside India. So therefore, one has to have an eye whether it is a legislation by incorporation or reference, and how do we make use of that. Inherent power of the authorities. This is also very relevant, whether to understand whether they can condone the delay or not, whether there is a power to rectify that order or not. And this is called ROM applications. There are certain miscellaneous powers which they are having, giving stay to that particular thing. So therefore, what are those inherent power of the authorities is also very relevant for us to know that. Jurisdiction is extremely, extremely important in the GST scheme of things. There are scenarios we saw, there are parallel investigation. One central government is issuing a kind of notice, inquiry notice, etc. And state government people are also, whether do they have jurisdiction or not. And we saw Canon India Supreme Court judgment recently, where on a jurisdiction point, the DRI is not having a jurisdiction to adjudicate the matter. I think jurisdiction is very, very important. We need to be careful and mindful of this particular thing. Time bar. When do you say there is a time bar? We all know section 73, 74. It says that whenever there is a case made on account of fraud, suppression, misstatement, etc., then they can go up to 5 years. Otherwise, they can go up to 3 years. Whether there is a matter which is having a time bar aspect or not, generally, as a practice, we saw they issue a notice saying there is a suppression in the matter. There is a fraud in the matter that you have committed. So therefore, one has to have to defend that there is no suppression, whether we made any disclosure to them, whether my return is providing that particular thing or not, whether there is any other evidence from there, I can support that there was no suppressions in this particular matter. In fact, in one matter we argued and we succeeded also. They said that you have not made a declaration. We argued our return was not providing a column to declare that, and which ultimately tribunal agreed with us. So therefore, when they can go beyond 5 years, when they cannot go beyond 5 years. Now recently this Mohit Mittal judgment has come, and then this manpower supply judgment has come. in manpower supply judgment, the Supreme Court said that in case of secondment, that transaction is taxable. Now, it means the matter is settled by the Supreme Court. Incidentally, the Supreme Court judgment dealt with the time bar aspect also, whether the extended period of limitation is invoked or not. Assuming Supreme Court has not gone into that, then also the law is very clear. If a matter is decided by the highest court of the country, it means there are two views possible. If there are two views possible, then there cannot be suppression. The suppression can come only and only when there is only one view possible and you have suppressed it. In one of the matters, some client has come to me, there was some anti-dumping issue. They filed a bill of entry. In a bill of entry, they have made some declarations that I am importing XYZ product. And that there was anti-dumping applicability on that XYZ only. The expression given in the anti-dumping notification, the expression and the expression given in that bill of entry was verbatim. It means I have not suppressed anything. I told you. And your own department has not questioned me. It means I have not suppressed it. So we need to see in which context there can be issue of invoking up to 5 years. There can be issue of invoking up to 3 years. In fact, under the earlier law, there was a more motivation because now 3 year, 5 year is very less distance. But earlier in service tax, initially it was 1 year, then they put it 18 months, then they put a 30 month, etc. But it is very important to understand when they can go up to 5 years and when they cannot go up to 5 years. And another bullet is very important, is the intersection with other laws. See, as a student, I realized over the years, if we try to understand GST law, reading GST law, we will not be able to understand fully. But if we see in contrast with and in connection with that, I was wondering why they introduced, there was a definition of input under excise law to cover specifically the toolkit will be fitting into the definition of input. And the definition of input at that point of time is mean goods used in no relation to the manufacturer of the final product. Obviously, the toolkit which comes in a car is not used in the manufacture. In fact, the fifth tire, the stepney, is also not used in the manufacture. Only the 4 tires are used. Why they were giving credit of the toolkit or and the stepney, etc. Then we realized that it is not because of the this excise law, it is because of the Motor Vehicle Act. Motor Vehicle Act says unless you give this, you cannot clear the motor vehicle from your factory. If a particular car manufacturer has to clear that particular motor vehicle from its factory, then he should have all this. And if this credit is not available, it will be like unfairness to that particular person. So therefore, the answer was not lying in the Central Excise Act. The answer was lying in the Motor Vehicle Act. And similarly, now all these EVs and other things are coming to understand all those scenarios. And if we are not aligned to understand the Motor Vehicle Act, how the Motor Vehicle Act has come up to this particular thing, then it will be very difficult to challenge those particular points. And this, recently, we saw how our real estate provisions are fully aligned with RERA. If I say I will not read RERA, RERA has nothing to do with me. We will not be able to understand the real estate related provisions, our JDA related provisions. We will not be able to prepare a submission with respect to that. So therefore, we should understand RERA. We should see how that RERA is, how that those things are interpreted there, and what is the relevance and connection with this particular thing. And those things are like lease, mortgage, all these things are defined under the Transfer of Property Act. So therefore, unless we have that understanding of intersection to see how those legislations have been have explained and understood and defined those particular things, we will not be able to give a proper justification to that particular matter. So similarly, there are contract law, there are labor law, there are IBC. Now, recently we come across an issue, this J1, J2 form under the Maharashtra VAT. The vendor, there was some IBC proceedings are held against him. And we all know that If he was liable to pay the tax and if he has not paid the tax, then I will not get the credit. But if under IBC he was not liable to pay the tax also, then in that situation, whether they can deny my credit or not. Probably we took this argument and yet to see how courts are going to take a view on this. But how IBC we have used it basically to interpret the VAT provision. So this is another point I just wanted to mention. Then filing of writ petition. Whenever I speak to many my chartered accountant friends, the question comes, can we file writ in this matter? See, the writ you can file if you want to challenge a particular section, rule, notice, if there is a non-speaking order, if there is a natural justice provisions have been violated, if on merit of the matter, he is demanding tax from you, it is a matter of interpretation of that very section. Probably we will not be able to challenge that particular thing before the High Court by way of filing a writ. Because for a writ to file against any demand notice, etc., I need to fulfill the test of alternate remedy. The court will say, if there is alternate remedy available, why are you coming here? So therefore, or we need to prove there is a judgment of the tribunal which is already against me on this very point, and there is a law point involved in this matter. Since the tribunal judgment is against me, even if I go through the tribunal, I will not be able to get a justice of the matter. Then we will not be able to get a justice till High Court level. Only in that situation we can go and file a writ in the High Court. So therefore, filing a writ in the High Court is also, we cannot do it in a routine manner. We need to see whether this is a matter where writ can be filed or not. Like in GST, there are so many writs have been filed, rightly so, because our transitional provisions were not competent to handle those sort of a scenario. Therefore, filing writ on those matters was possible, but we need to be careful when a writ can be filed or not. Patent and latent error, we saw in many matters there are quantification issues, rate have been wrongly applied. Therefore, please have a look at it very clearly, the schedule to the show cause notice. Because sometimes we read the show cause notice as a lawyer, we make a lot of times that difficulty, that kind of, we make that error. We sometimes see the law point, but numbers, annexures, how that rate has come out, they do a lot of goof up in calculation also. And they sometimes apply the wrong sections, etc. All sort of latent and blatant error are also, like in tennis, we see there is an unforced error. And in litigation also, sometime in the show cause notice or in the order, there are unforced error, there are some error which really make our life more easy also. So therefore, please look at those sort of a patent and latent error. It also helps to navigate the matter. Now, these are fundamental points. Now we'll get into the basics. How do we do in the drafting? I think these are some, after doing this sort of analysis, we will get into the actual drafting. How do we do? Before I draft, we should know what are the remedies. What is the remedy that whether we are preparing a reply to a scrutiny notice, whether we are preparing, whether we need to file an application to the department, whether we are filing a cross objection or appeal or a writ, we should be clear what is the cause of action. What is our ask? What is the problem in the matter? Accordingly, our strategy will change. If we are not mindful of what that cause of action is. Recently, one client has come. Their IEC number has been used wrongly to do some export by some other party, and they got some drawback, etc. And because of that, they were like in a red list that you are indulged in some illegal activities, etc. In that situation, if we need to prepare an application to go to the customer and say, no, it is not my fault, it's the fault of your own people, that application is different. But if we are done a hearing and we need to file a written submission in a matter, that application is different. So therefore, what is the cause of action and why we are doing that particular thing, that is very, very important. Based on the remedy, we need to then provide a requisition to the list of documents. List of document is very important. Generally in the show cause notice, there are relied upon documents that we see. And in fact, Gupta sir very beautifully explained, even before the show cause notice, what is the role that we all need to play to give a right information and all the contracts, document, all sort of calculations. So therefore, list of document also vary from situation to situation. Providing the appropriate document, bringing appropriate document on the record, analyzing them is also a part of the drafting. So therefore, list of document is very, very clear. Once we go through all the documents, then we should prepare our internal notes, then know how do we take the matter forward. We should be also mindful of the statutory time period, that know how much time we are having, whether we need to file appeal in 60 days, 90 days, or if there is some timeline officer has given. Even though for replying to the show cause notice, there is no sacrosanct time limit, but there are certain scenarios where there is a strict time limit on which we need to move forward. To keep an eye on the statutory time limit is very, very important. Then what are the formats? Some of the authorities were having certain specific format in which the drafting has to come. In this way, the facts should come. In this way, the ground should come. Those sort of a formatting related things also we need to be very clear. Importance of prayer. Prayer is very important. What I really are asked is, sometime and generally, I was appearing in one matter where we said generally as in a cut paste manner, the impugned order needs to be set aside. But in my case, in that matter, we already got say substantial relief in the matter. But for small point, I filed appeal. Then officer told me that no, if you want to get this impugned order set aside, then whatever relief also you got, that can also be in a difficulty. Then we made immediately amendment that insofar as the order is against me, needs to be set aside. So therefore, what is our prayer? That is very important. And when we move to the high courts, etc., all those, the question of law needs to be framed. I think those are another set of exercise. But prayer is very important, what we are really looking for. And I will also request, whenever we draft a prayer, make sure we should be saying that before taking any decision in the matter, a hearing should be granted to us. Because if we don't take hearing, and if that is not in our prayer, eventually they have to give us a hearing notice. But if we make it very specifically, it becomes a little more easy for us to take the things forward. I think then there are certain do's and don'ts. Obviously, we cannot deal each and every point, but this is my experience, how we have come across. It should be simple word, because after reading a particular petition or submission, it should look like a story. Once somebody reads it, I experience narrating a facts is very important. Clear facts, that what is my business, what I was doing, how that controversy arisen, and what is the core point involved, what is the allegation in this matter. And then after the way facts should be drafted in such a way that my argument looks logical. If I just do some assembly, if I do some khichdi, कि इधर का इधर डाल दिया, उधर का इधर डाल दिया, then there is a problem. So therefore, putting systematically all the facts, how my case has really moved from level 1 to level 2 and level 2 to level 3, what is the controversy and what we are really looking for. And then if we take that way, after reading that, at least at a tribunal, high court and Supreme Court, the judges read all the files. After reading the file, they should be ready with the pertinent questions and we should be ready with the pertinent answers. And then the relief giving will become little more easier. So therefore, it should be simple word, technical jargon to the extent we can avoid, we should avoid. The sentence should be it should not be double negative. Like, no, we have given example, not unusual. Not unusual means usual. So instead of putting this complicated, not uncertain, it means it is a certain. So therefore, if we put it in a simple language, simple plain English, long sentences to be avoided. Generally, I saw at least lawyers, they draft long sentences. We should be avoiding long sentences, short sentence, maximum 1 or 2 lines, so that each sentence should convey, and let me also tell you, each line of you what you draft should carry a weight. Why we are putting a particular annexures, why we are writing this para, what this para is trying to communicate, can we avoid this para, can we avoid this annexure, why we are not adding a new annexure, why we are not drafting a new para. I think we should be questioning each and every word that we are putting. Long sentences should be avoided. There should be consistency in the word of drafting. Sometimes we say company, sometimes we say notice, sometimes we say name of the company, sometimes we say we, sometimes we say yes. So I think there should be consistency throughout the document. And consistency also takes a lot of time. At a junior level, senior level, I saw if the document is not consistent, it gives a very confusing message. There should be consistency, whatever we are saying. And all the legal formalities, there are certain rules, there are certain format. We should definitely be making sure that no, we are complying with all sort of format. There should be mention of date, number, and paragraph should be properly concluded. What is coming out from the para, that should come out very, very clearly. And sometime in the bigger show cause notices, etc., para-wise reply is also is a kind of a good habit. If we make that sort of a para-wise reply, then it becomes a little more easier when somebody is reading that particular document. Moving to the next, understanding of the business is very important. For example, if you have to prepare something of banking industry, NBFC, agribusiness, even more automobile, okay, if we have some understanding of that business, how we draft and then we narrating to that particular to the authority, and which Gupta sir beautifully explained also, that becomes a little more easy. So what is really the natural in that particular industry and norms in that particular industry, whether it is a seasonal industry. Therefore, understanding of the industry, and if you and this is very relevant in classification. When we are dealing in the classification, I can tell you, classification we are going to see huge amount of litigation in days to come. And the way all investigations are happening with the tax authorities, classification is going to kind of lead that particular thing. I'm already handling so many classification matter. So therefore, understanding of the industry is very important. And that is going to help you in even addressing the matter or even winning the matter. Then what are the provisions where whenever we are working on a particular draft, what is the section, what is the notification, what is the circular, what is the judgment on that very point, put that thing together, read that thing together, then you will be analyzing which way I should structure my facts, which way I should structure my ground of the this thing. There should not be reproduction of the full, only the relevant thing we should be reproducing. Whenever we are using a judgment, please make sure to read the judgment fully. Because if one para is in favor of me, other para is against me, it means I'll be killing myself. Therefore, make a habit of reading the judgment fully. And unless the judgment in entirety is in your favor, we should not be using that judgment. And if there are some arguments which are not very strong, it may be weak argument, please don't take it in the first line. It should be the last one. So that if we are working on it, we should be making sure we should not be starting with the weak point. We should be starting with the most important point in the matter. I think these are some of the do's and don'ts. Basis my experience so far, I try to put together. Now, what are the tax litigations, especially in indirect taxes? What are generally the issues which are really coming up? We all saw that somebody wrongly availed the credit, somebody wrongly availed the refund. Yesterday, somebody interestingly asked me a question. Now, in case of Mohit Mineral, Supreme Court said that ocean freight, there is no need to pay tax. The question was, some client asked me a question that I have already paid tax and I have availed a credit also. Can tomorrow department come and deny me the credit? Then we saw the judgment once more. Judgment clearly says that importer is a receiver of the service. For me to take credit under section 16, I need to fulfill two conditions. Are you a receiver of the supply or not? One. And section 16 says tax charged. It is not saying tax payable. Tax payable may be 0, but tax charged, whatever has been charged, I should be able to get credit of that. So therefore, I am a receiver of the supply. Supreme Court didn't say you are not a receiver. If the Supreme Court would have said that importer of the goods is not a receiver of the supply, the credit would have been a difficulty. But Supreme Court said you are a receiver of the supply only because of some other reason that you already paid a custom duty and is a composite supply, etc. Supreme Court said the tax is not payable. Therefore, in that particular scenario, credit is absolutely not a difficulty for the past period. But I'm just telling what all the issues which can come up, at least in a GST, and which this is coming up is, one is credit, refund, cross charge versus ISD is a very unique scenario. We saw somebody done a cross charge, they say why I have not done ISD. Somebody done ISD, they say why I have not done cross charge. I have both the show cause notice on my table. Is a unique thing. Two-way versus 3B mismatch. I think these are also one of the point where issues are coming up. Related party transactions, mainly the trademark. If there are related party transactions with respect to the trademark and with respect to within the same legal entity, one office is using the trademark of other office, obviously they will be using it. Those are also one of the issues which we are grappling with and coming up. Classification is a big area, is likely to come up. In custom valuation also, in a case of related party transaction, whether they should follow rule 4, comparable price or cost of goods or deductive value, those are the issues are also coming up. Bill of entry amendment. A lot of importers are grappling with this issue. They had to pay additional custom duty. Can they take credit of that? The duty paid by way of a challan. Challan is not an appropriate document for you to take credit. But then people are going for amendment in bill of entry. And these officers are not allowing that amendment. They say, no, you cannot amend the bill of entry because of the Supreme Court judgment in case of ITC. Supreme Court judgment never said that you cannot get the bill of entry amended. But these are the issues which we are seeing it more often, which industry is really facing. We thought we will also bring this to your attention. Things to be seen as soon as the show cause notice. If you receive a show cause notice, what you should be having a looking at it. Whether the DIN number is there or not, whether DRC 01A has been issued or not, or in case of customs, pre-SCN consultation notice has been issued or not. We got a relief in a matter in service tax. The pre-SCN was not issued. Pre-SCN consultation was not issued. On that ground, the show cause notice was quashed. When they were to issue a new show cause notice, that time that whole thing was time barred. Therefore, this small point, pre-SCN consultation, we may be thinking, "Arey se kya fark padta hai? Pre-SCN bhi kar deta to kya hota?" But the point is, if that show cause notice the show cause notice issued based on pre-SCN, not issued a pre-SCN, is quashed. And if they tomorrow have to issue a pre-SCN and then main show cause notice, by the time the whole demand is time barred. Therefore, all these small point, innocent point can give you a big relief. So therefore, if we have a look at it, all these things, it makes the thing very easy. Whether they follow the procedure or not, whether the show cause notice is properly served. Service of the notice is very important. Jurisdiction, whether the officer is empowered or not. We got so many relief. A particular level like assistant commissioner can issue a show cause notice, say up to 50 lakh. The number may go here and there, but if assistant commissioner is issuing a show cause notice of 5 crore, that show cause notice, he has no jurisdiction to issue that show cause notice. On this ground itself, the notice should be quashed. So therefore, what are his monetary power in which he can issue a show cause notice, whether it is being issued in time or not? Calculation is very important. Then time bar is another important. What are the key allegations? Because every notice has some heart. If we pick the heart, if we pick the point, that what is the killing point in this matter? and we kill it, then things become a little more easier. I think these are the things we have to see. Actual drafting will come by practice, and it is how frequently you have been dealing these particular thing, then it comes by practice. But once we get a clarity that these are the areas where we need to be careful and mindful, then I think these are the points we have mentioned. Just one point, revenue neutrality, also one of the argument which we have been taking. The rest of the point I think we have discussed in the earlier slide also. Going to the next is in position before self-assessment regime. This is a very important point. See what happened in my case. One client was importing a particular goods, and he was classifying a particular heading. Revenue said, this is the wrong heading, you should take custom duty. I just checked with the client, since when you are importing under this heading? They said, "Hum to shuru se aisa kar rahe hain." Then we found whether in customs before 2011, there was not a self-assessment. Before 2011, there was a examination by the custom authority. Then I asked the client, can you get me the bill of entry pre-2011? They said, yes, I can find out. We found out the bill of entry of that same very product pre-2011. And in pre-2011, they have been classifying the same product in the heading which they are classifying today. It means what? It means government knows it, and they have done that, they have approved it. Once they have approved it, how can you say there is a suppression in the matter? And on that ground, we got a big relief. Therefore, sometimes these are the issues when we are dealing with classification related matters become very, very important. And last is procedural and substantive relief. Whether it is a procedural issue, whether we have done a procedural non-compliance or a substantive non-compliance, that is also sort of a thing which we should be mindful. When it comes to exemption notification, procedural non-compliance can also be an issue. So therefore, we should be very clear whether it is a non-compliance on account of procedure or on account of law. Then things needs to be seen as soon as appeal is filed, whether order is in your favor or not, whether part of the order is in your favor. Like I took an example, my prayer was that the whole order needs to be set aside. We should be mindful which portion of the order we want to challenge. What are the findings? And Gupta sir very beautifully explained also finding part. Every order, what finding they have given. Generally, the structure of the order is first they will tell what are the facts, then they will tell what are the case made up by the government, then they will tell what are the submission of the assessee, then they will give their own analysis of that. I think we need to be very clear what are the analysis given by that, what are the finding they have given, and how we are countering that finding. So therefore, our eye should be on the finding and how we are countering to that particular thing. And then whether order is issued within the prescribed time limit. What happened in one matter? Shoko notice has been issued in, say, year 2007. Order has been passed in 2022. Can there be unreasonable delay in passing the order? Answer is no. Therefore, even on those points also, whether the order is passed within the reasonable time limit or not, that is also very important. Sometime what happened? Hearing took place today. Order passed after 2 years. On this ground itself, the order can be challenged. That how can somebody will remember the matter after 2 years also? If hearing has been heard by, the matter has been heard by officer A, order has been passed by officer B, how can they do that? Because officer A heard me, he should have passed the order. If officer B is passing the order without giving me the hearing, how can he pass the order? So therefore, all these points, we should be mindful. And sometime what happens when the demand is quashed, no, we may think that they may issue a new Shoko notice, etc. Most of the time they are, and as Gupta sir said, sometimes it takes 10 years, 5 years to adjudicate and to reach to a matter to the tribunal and get the matter decided. If the demand is quashed, it's quashed forever. So therefore, all these finer points and minor points are very, very important. Now, before we get into the last point, I just want to tell you about classification, why we took this slide, because there are many disputes are coming in GST side, in custom side, with respect to the classification. What you should be definitely taking that in mind. One, understanding the product and technology. Understanding the product is most important thing, and this is the most difficult also sometimes. So therefore, and as a chartered accountant, I was always having a belief that how can I understand a technology? But there is no excuse to, without understanding the technology, we may not be able to understand and decide the exact classification. And I'm not saying it is very easy. I'm not saying it is impossible. It is reasonably possible. So therefore, once we start getting and trying to understand, and chartered accountants, you are such a close person to the client. You know their business more than sometimes client knows their business. Therefore, if you try to start getting into this understanding, it is very easy. One is understanding the product. Two, section note, chapter note, and general rules of interpretation is very, very important. So one section note will take you to chapter 84, other chapter note will bring you back to chapter 39, how you should harmonize, how you should read multiple section note and chapter note and reach to that particular conclusion. It requires patience. It is a patiently reading can help only and only. And if we miss one comma, one semicolon, one note, the things can be very opposite to us. So therefore, reading of this particular thing is very important. HSN explanatory note is a useful guide. Supreme Court also said very clearly in many judgment, and now after this Westinghouse judgment, government has also issued a detailed circular that how HSN explanatory notes are very important for us to understand the classification of it. And WC advisories are also important. There are foreign rulings which are also available on the free net. That also we can find out and we can explore. And the last point is custom tariff and GST tariff. Even though they are aligned, but they are not fully aligned. One should definitely be mindful what is written in the custom tariff and what is written in the GST tariff. If small difference can make a huge difference. So therefore, and our GST tariff is aligned up to 4 digit, our custom tariff is aligned up to 8 digit, and there are kind of parts related classification. There are some minor nuances. One should be clear. Then I think if we are clear about these fundamental points, we are clear about typical legal point, legal jargon, how these things. And I can tell you in litigation, there are majority of the matter are won on merit, but there are huge amount of matters are won on procedures, time bar, calculations. They're very important. So therefore, if we, and chartered accountant are very good in understanding the procedures, chartered accountants are very good in understanding the number. And once we start applying these things in our day-to-day things, then things will be a little more easy for us. And huge opportunities are coming because of massive litigations is coming up. A lot of investigations are happening, and doing the hand-holding during that investigation is a big opportunity. Tribunals are coming in multiple cities, and the way our compliance system is, I think the huge amount of matters which are only containing number crunching. 2A, 3B is a number crunching. You can explain better. Okay, coming to the lawyer will be may not be feasible on many matters. 2A, 3B, the way you can understand the communication, the way you can explain the reconciliation is very important. And nowadays, I see many show cause notice in service tax are also coming, where your revenue under in your books of accounts is X, but your GSTR, your STR, service tax return is saying some different revenue. It is a reconciliation, purely reconciliation. And in reconciliation, we do accounting as per accrual, as per accounting standard 9. I don't know what we say now in Ind AS, but when I done my CA at that time, it was accounting standard 9. We do in our whole accounting is done on accrual basis, but our service tax is a point of taxation. Similarly in GST also. So there are huge amount of litigation on reconciliation. I can tell you amounts are running in crores. It are not in few lakhs, running in crores. Therefore, if we have we build this DNA among us that no, we can also do litigation and we should be doing litigation. I can tell you the opportunities are huge, and our understanding on the holistic way is much higher and larger. I think this is all I want to mention. I will be happy to take up the questions. Probably I didn't go how to draft, but if we are conditioned how to draft, then drafting becomes very easy. It's just a pure English, and it takes some time to get into that flow. But these fundamental point I just tried. It was in 1.5 hours to pour in the experience. I tried, but I'm not sure whether I could justify to this time and this opportunity. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Pinky, you want to take over for the question answer session?
Yeah, I'll be happy. Yeah, I'll be happy to take. If Gupta sir is there.
There are two questions. Yeah. So there are two questions actually related to, I'll read it out for you. In many submissions, it is observed that new professionals start submission at the instance and instructions of the client. We wish to submit that. So the questionnaire wants to understand that whether this is an important phase and whether it is a good practice to follow.
See, when you got authorization from the client to appear, okay, I think this question is mainly pertaining to appearance. Otherwise, all the submissions are signed by the client only. As a lawyer, we as a lawyer or as a chartered accountant, when we are appearing before the authorities, only those submissions we sign it at that time. If you are filing some additional submissions, some synopsis, etc. Once we got a wakalatnama and once we got authorization from the client, it means whatever we are submitting on their behalf. Okay, there is no personal submission that we are making because of the authorization itself. We are submitting on behalf of the client. Whether you tell it or not, I don't think it is going to make any difference. Sometime what happens in a court, what I experienced, if judge asks some questions and we are not clear about it, and we do not know whether to concede that point or not, okay, then we will take specific instruction from the client that no, I need to take instruction from the client whether we want to concede this point and whether that information is available or not. Only in that situation I saw. Otherwise, whether we tell it or not, whatever we are speaking on behalf of client.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Understood. So second question is that what are the ways to upgrade oneself about latest judgment notification circulars? Can you recommend any kind of subscription?
See, the subscription are we use tax management. We use this nowadays. I think it is up to you how you want to update, because the flood of knowledge is there. Okay, whatever happens in new circular comes, new notification comes, so 100 of messages start floating. But if we try to read the law through WhatsApp messages, that is not the right way. I think you need to subscribe some of those journals, either tax management, TMI, what we say, or Tax India Online, or whatever. I think there are numerous options available. What I learned in life, when the student is ready, the teacher arrives. Okay, you need to ignite your studentship inside you. The options are numerous. Nowadays, we are not living in an era where there is a scarcity of information. It is a flood of information. It is up to you whether you are ready or not.
Sir, another question is on time barring. Is this, if the show cause notice is time barred, is this a sufficient ground to quash the SCN show cause notice, or there are other grounds required to be inserted and elaborated extensively, other than time barring?
See, there are some matter where we have more than one argument available on merit as well as time bar. We should definitely take that. But if we left with no other situation but on a time bar, why not? We don't require ground on merit in some of the situations we saw. We generally take that as a first line of argument that whole demand is time bar. But as a practice, if you can build some case on merit, that will show some more of reasonableness to argue. But if we are left with no other situation, definitely the whole demand can be on time bar also. Like similarly, I'll just give you example. Now the Supreme Court judgment has come in case of manpower supply. In case of secondment from abroad to India, they say it's taxable now. In one of my client, the whole demand is time barred. On merit, they have nothing. Because whatever argument we have taken now, the Supreme Court said all these arguments are not valid. Okay. On time bar, the whole demand is time barred. Then we will definitely go to the tribunal and say the lordship, the whole demand is time barred. So therefore, on this ground itself, the whole demand needs to be quashed. So time bar is an excellent weapon. But to justify the time bar, if we say there is a time bar, it's not that. I need to prove it. That why there is no suppression by me, why there is no misstatement by me. Adducing the evidence to justify the time bar is very important. Simply saying time bar is not going to help.
Okay, got it. So it will reinforce, I mean, it's just one of the arguments, but another argument would be better off.
Absolutely.
I agree. Sir, there is one more question. If the assessing officer is issuing deficiency memo without giving any opportunity for hearing or not rejecting the refund application, can we file writ petition?
Writ petition also definitely can be filed because if there is a natural justice violation, as I mentioned to you, okay. But make sure that whenever we are filing a refund claim, now most of the refund claim, or in fact every refund claim is filed online. If we somewhere also mention that before you take any decision in the matter, and you should be giving me you should be giving me a hearing, definitely is an excellent point to challenge that particular denial by way of a writ in the High Court.
Okay. Sir, there is a question for your suggestion on any book for GST litigation matters. GST litigation matters, any book?
I don't think I have not read any book per se.
Sir, have you written any?
No, I have not written. I have not written, and I have not. I think it is a day-to-day tapas. I must say this. There is no shortcut. It is a day-to-day tapasya. And then I think things are a little more easy. It's like I read somewhere and which really fascinated me. The effort should become effortless. It is of that state of mind. Otherwise,
right.
In shortcut it will not happen. Because that conditioning will be there for some time. We go in some good hilly place, we enjoy for some time, and then we come back. It will be of that. It is a day-to-day practice, I must say this.
Okay. Sir, whether GST tribunal has been constant. Yeah.
There are books like which are authority and which will continue to be authority, like Anga Palkiwala, that is on income tax. But the fundamentals what they have explained, that will continue to be. And I'm sure now Gupta sir is there. The book I mentioned many times in my mention also that we used to refer that book the way systematically all sections, because ultimately the interpretation, the reading of the section, rule, notification, judgment, and the views of author. The views of author ideally should not bias your views. Okay, your view should be formed basis the reading of the law. But if there are these books books are available, even Gupta sir's book is available, we can definitely take a reference of that and learn from that.
Okay. So whether GST tribunal is constituted and has started functioning.
Yeah, I think this is all a dream of all of us. It is an astrological, logic-related question. We all are waiting for it. I think it may take another 1 year minimum. The way, because it has to be some GST council meeting should finalize that particular thing. I do not know what is really stopping them. Why can't they say that one member from the center or the state? Because what was the controversy? They say that one member from the center, one member from the state, and one member from the bar. The 3 members will be sitting. And they challenge this particular thing in the High Court, saying it means there are 2 technical members and there are 2 revenue members and 1 judicial member is sitting. Therefore, their view will always be tilted towards that and it will never be a relief to the assessor. But if they amend the law saying, like even today in GST, either we are governed by the central authority or we are governed by the state authority. Even though they are having parallel jurisdiction to question me, but they amicably solve that issue that if you are assessed by the center, it means you are be equally assessed by the state. Okay. Like one company is not having 2 parallel jurisdictions, there are 2 parallel officers are not questioning ideally. But if they make this particular thing very simple, that if there is either one center or the state member will be there and 1 judicious member is there, I think that will solve the issue. I do not know what is the hitch behind it and why they are not able to do it. This simple one line amendment can solve this entire issue. That is my view, but maybe there are some other issues which they are stopping them to do that.
So let's hope it will be in near future.
Absolutely, we all are waiting for it. A huge amount of appeals are yet to be filed on this point. Yes.
Sir, please advise whether arrest of CA handling the tax affairs of the company are a norm or what are the safeguards?
Oh, I think Gupta sir beautifully explained what are the safeguards, etc. Just to reiterate that, I think if we are doing things in a prudent and diligent manner, and our habit of supporting the client beyond a limit, if we have to little more governed by the scope of work and other things, then I think, and the chances of getting into all sort of issues can be avoided. But if we start working as if it is not his firm, is my firm, is not his factory, but my factory, and I know more than him, then I think there will definitely be trouble. At the end of the day, their CFO should not say, I don't know, this chartered accountant only knows. That situation we should definitely be avoiding. I know it's tough and difficult considering how closely we work with the clients, but somewhere we need to draw a line that tax compliance,
Right.
We are only advisor to them. We are not doer. Okay, they are the doer, we are only supporting to them. Somewhere that line we should draw.
Sir, I think we should expressly discourage the clients for keeping their records also in CA's office.
Absolutely.
Or something like that, where we take everything with us. I think that practice would be one of the safeguards. So another question is relating to adjudicating authority. It is not giving the date of hearing and said that it will take another 6 months to take up the case. So what will be the possible remedy?
See, if you are really interested to get your matter closed at the earliest, you can file a letter to them that no, we have filed this reply. Please give us the date of hearing. Or if you see your case is strong, they are sleeping, then why are you bothering them? Okay. If you really want a quick adjudication of the matter, then only you should be writing. Generally, it takes sometimes years together. Sometimes they take 6 months, sometimes they take 1 year. It may also be a problem with them that they may not be having proper officer available there. They may be expecting some more senior officer to come. Sometimes these issues are also there. But I have experienced, they are not given hearing for 2 years, 1 year, 3 years, depending upon matter to matter.
Okay, that's quite a time period to have. So thank you very much. We have no open questions now. And Sandeep sir, after a very long time,
No,
hearing you.
Gupta, there is a question.
Yeah?
There
Is
one
a
or two
question.
questions.
Okay.
Yes. There is 8 questions are there. I have seen notice
can you
where
please tell?
officer. Yeah. I have seen notice where officer mentions section 73 as well as section 74. Can we reply that authority himself is not aware about the provision and that's why order is bad in law?
Absolutely, absolutely. You said it. You said it. You see, the show cause notice is a foundation of a litigation. It should not be vague. It should be precise. If you yourself are not clear whether I should be here or not, on this ground itself, the notice should be quashed. And there are a series of judgments on this point.
Next question is, in some of our client SEC, they have received GST ASMT 10 notices, DRC 01, DRC 01A, SCNs online, which were followed by passing ex parte order in DRC 07 against the SEC, which were directly attached in our login on GST portal without any kind of communication via post or mail. Can those orders be challenged under the principle
100%,
of natural justice?
100%. 100%.
Officer in those cases have gone has given a reason that they had a departmental pressure to issue such notices and order.
That itself is an excellent point to challenge. Okay, because they are having pressure. See, as I said, it is a quasi-judicial authority. When you are adjudicating a matter, deciding rights and liabilities of the party, you are wearing a different hat. You are not an administrative person. You are deciding the matter. You are deciding the rights and liabilities of the party. So therefore, you cannot decide without following the due process and procedure of the law.
Master circular issued by Maharashtra government in respect of ITC issues of financial year 17-18 and financial year 18-19 bounding on central authority.
Binding, see all these circular, even if issued by the state government and all, it shows the mindset of the authorities. There is no harm in placing reliance on that and taking that. If that circular is supporting us, definitely we can take that help of the circular and say, because ultimately I am in Maharashtra. Okay. And I am parallelly assessed by both authorities. You yourself have decided that I will take care of this assessing and you will take care of that assessing. Eventually, we are assessed under both. For convenience purpose, you have segregated. Like no Tata Motor, assuming Tata Motor is assessed by say X officer. It is parallelly assessed by both. But we took a call that it will be assessed. So therefore, if one Maharashtra VAT authority is saying or Maharashtra GST authority is saying that this is the interpretation of a particular problem, that thing can also be used to assess my central government issue. No problem.
Sir, one question is, that is for our purpose, that he is asking that can institute make representation to state officer for providing acknowledgement of submission made during hearing? Many times they do not acknowledge the submissions.
ये तो देखो हमें आदत डालनी पड़ेगी, और जब हम आदत डाल लेते हैं तो ऑफिसर मानते हैं. See, if you want to change them, we need to have a solid discipline. Otherwise, nobody wants to change.
Yes, sir. In some cases, in bank report also, when we are giving audit reports, they are not ready to acknowledge the hard copy, but we are insisting them to give the acknowledgement of
and if they are not doing it, then we should send that particular document by way of a registered post. Okay, और 2 बार ऐसा करेंगे, तीसरी बार वो मानेगा.
Correct. Agree. Sir, in case of petrol pump dealer, can we take ITC of GST paid for audit? He is also selling oil which is taxable.
Oil is taxable, I think. Oil is taxable.
Lubricant वगैरह जो सेल होती है ना पेट्रोल पंप पे, lubricant और वो सब भी तो सेल करते
हैं. Lubricants are taxable. Then in that case, proportionate credit will be available. Otherwise, oil and all they are taxable under VAT. Proportionate credit should be available.
Okay, so it is also done. For tax, last question, for taxpayer whose GST audit has been completed for 17-18 and 18-19, then again if ASMT 10 is received for discrepancies, should taxpayer again submit all details or completion of audit can be cited?
See, if audit is completed, there is no bar for the officer to question it. I need to see whether particular thing needs to be, they cannot redo the etc. But generally we saw, at least in investigations and all, even if the audit is done, the new officer will come and start questioning that, which we can definitely reply and say that our records have already been seen. We saw parallel investigations by the central government and the local range, like DGGI is issuing a separate summon and local range is issuing a separate summon. Those things are possible, but we need to see case to case basis that how we can defend this parallel level of investigations.
Sir, all done. Now, Ruta, please propose a hearty word of thanks to sir.
Thank you, Venki. Sandeep sir, as usual, it's my pleasure to propose the vote of thanks. I think you have very succinctly covered all the points. And basically, I liked one thing that, as you rightly mentioned about the prayer that has to be at the end of the statement, because really it is said a prayer for perhaps a reason. That many times we write all the things and forget to mention that what we really want from it. So really it was a very important point from my angle, and really words have power, and you have shown us that words, how to make it more powerful by taking into consideration really the drafting in its truest sense.
Ruta, if you allowed, I
Thank
want
you
to
so
add
much
one.
for agreeing to be here. Yes, do add.
Ruta, one thing I want to add, that one person was asking na ki whether any for safeguard, but we chartered accountant are giving our email ID and our contact detail in GST registration and GST site. That we should be avoid. कि वो बार बार OTP लेना पड़ेगा उस बोल के they are giving our communication their communication detail, email ID and mobile number. So in my opinion, we all tax practitioners, CA should avoid to give their email ID and mobile number. OTP, we can ask OTP from client now. Why we are giving our details, communication details? If you miss one notice, it will come on you. So my suggestion to all the participants,
right,
please change.
Yeah,
please change your communication detail in GST registration and give your client communication detail in all the, not only GST, in all the tax department website registration. Please don't give your number. Am I right, Sandeep sir?
Absolutely, absolutely. In that way, even though I am CA, I did law, but I saw one good practice with lawyers. Basically, they maintain some distance from the client, and that is why generally all these things are not harming them more than the chartered accountant.
Sir, to quote a Hindi song, "Tere sukh ab tere, tere dukh ab mere nahi hai."
Definitely.
Yes. So thank you very much once again, Sandeep sir. Very, very thank you. So we'll end the seminar here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sandeep. Thank you for